Hey everyone, I just want to say a huge thank you to all of you for helping me reach 100 subscribers. I honestly couldn't have done this without your love, support, and constant encouragement. Every like, comment, and subscribe means a lot to me. Now let's keep this journey going. Our next target is 200 subscribers, and I know we can do it together. If you enjoy my content, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let's grow as a family. Thank you once again. Queen of the Pirates follows a gender-bent Luffy who dreams just as fiercely of becoming Pirate King, except this time, she's aiming to be Queen of the Pirates. The journey stays close to canon in spirit, with adventure, battles, and crew building across the seas, but shifts in interesting ways because of Femme Luffy's presence. Her dynamic with the Straw Hats, especially Zoro, leads to plenty of awkward, funny, and emotionally charged moments as friendship slowly blurs into something more. Along the way, the story balances classic One Piece chaos with growing romance, loyalty, and the challenges of being taken seriously in a pirate world that underestimates her. Disclaimer: this story do not belong to me. The author is Queen of the Pirates by MewStar0013. Respect to author.
Chapter 15, Treks in the Desert. A rice ball was making his way across a wooden table. His nose was long and small grains of white rice fallowed in his hops. "I am the great Captain Rice Ball Usopp. Who might you be?" asked Captain Rice Ball Usopp to the giant rice-made snowman before him. "I am Mr. Ricey Wisey, nice to meet ya," said Mr. Ricey Wisey. Captain Rice Ball Usopp gave a sharp yelp as the real Usopp was hit with a frying pan. Usopp rubbed his head while Lucy held Mr. Ricey Wisey in her arms. Sanji had a very visible vein popping out of his forehead. "Usopp, how many times must I tell you this? The stupid things you do affect darling Lucy's mind in the wrong ways. So quit the crap before I send you to the Grand Line and back," threatened Sanji as he walked back to the sink. "Hey, let me know if I can help in any way. I don't want to be a burden," said Anne. She had been sitting across from Lucy and Usopp, watching their little play. Sanji waved his hand. "No, you couldn't be a burden in any way. Someone as gorgeous and courteous as you must sit and have your rest, miss." "Anne, I'll do the work, just relax," said the cook. Anne just smiled and shrugged. She then felt Lucy poking at her arm. "Annie, let's play or something," whined the younger sister. "All right, what do you want to do?" asked Anne. Lucy got up and she tugged on her sister's arm. "Let's go see if the others want to play hide and seek. We haven't done that in a long time," she said. Anne gave a light laugh and she got to her feet. "All right, I have to start making my medicine, anyway. Chopper lent me some of his medical supplies earlier," she said as she lifted her bag over her shoulder and allowed the younger D sister to pull her out of the kitchen and onto the sky deck. It looked like everyone was on their own business. Zoro was working on a heavy training routine with a giant hammer Usopp lent him. Chopper was relaxing to the windy breeze of the swinging hammer. Usopp was busy sketching a picture of the ocean, and Nami and Vivi were coming from the inside the ship, changed out of their dancing girls' costumes. They now wore desert robes. "All right, guys, who wants to play hide and seek?" called Lucy. Usopp paused at his sketching. "Sure, why not? Say Chopper, you want to play, too?" called the sniper to the reindeer. The doctor sat up and grinned. "Yeah, count me in," he called as he ran over to his two other companions. Anne smiled at the three and she walked over to Zoro. She placed her bag down and she pulled out all the supplies Chopper had let her borrow. As she looked at the different ingredients, she decided to have a conversation with the swordsman. "So, working on heavy training, huh?" she asked. Zoro lifted the hammer up with a nod. "Yeah, I gotta protect that rubber girl somehow. She always somehow gets into trouble," he grunted as he swung the hammer. Anne nodded and she pulled out a small bowl, pouring a green power into it. "Huh, so you're the one who protects her. So that makes you the first mate, right?" she asked. Zoro swung the hammer 2 times. "I guess so. I mean, I was the first one on the crew, so I guess it does make me the first mate," he said. He then looked at Lucy, who was hiding behind a barrel with Usopp, because Chopper was it. The swordsman gave a brief smile. "I sometimes wonder how I got myself into that kind of business. Being in a pirate crew with a pirate like her," he said. Anne gave a small laugh as she poured a red vial into her medicine. "I get what you mean. When I first met Lucy, I thought she was just a kid who fell on her head one too many times. But," Anne's eyes looked toward her little sister and those brown irises softened. "It seems that she's much more than that. So much more," she said in a caring and quiet tone. Zoro paused at his swinging. "Wait, when you first met Lucy? What, you weren't there when she was born?" he asked. Anne shook her head as she stirred her medicine lightly with a wooden spoon. "No, Lucy didn't tell you. We're not related," We're adopted sisters, she said rather bluntly. Zoro nearly dropped his giant hammer and he looked from Ann to Lucy. Well, this was certainly a surprise. The two looked so alike. The black hair and everything. Well, it did sort of explain why the two were so different. Ann noticed the samurai's silence and she looked up at him, almost laughing at the look of his surprised face. You're surprised, right? That's okay. Most people are. A lot of people say me and Luce look alike. I can't blame them. When we were little, Lucy followed me around like a lost puppy. Man, what a kid, said the freckled-faced girl as she went back to her medicine making. Zoro watched the flame girl for a while before he felt his arms suddenly held in a vice grip and he gave a shout as he was tackled to the ground by his captain. Zoro. Nami and Vivi said that we're close to land. They said to get ready, said the captain sitting on the swordsman's waist. Zoro rubbed his head and nodded. I get you, Lucy. But just one thing, what in the name of hell did you tackle me for? He snapped. Lucy smiled and she leaned down, nestling her head to Zoro's neck. It's fun to tackle you. And you smell really good, she said as she took a small sniff, giggling at Zoro's familiar scent. Zoro's face went scarlet and he looked at Ann, who was watching the scene with an arched brow and a smirk on her face. Zoro's eyes spelt a message to the older sister. This isn't what you think it looks like. Ann's cocky eyes spoke back, with a little tease in them. You wanna bet on that? Zoro's eyebrows frowned and he pushed Lucy off him, who pouted and whined, "Ah. That was mean, Zoro." The green-haired man rolled his eyes while Ann gave a snicker behind her hand. When the Going Merry had docked on land, Zoro lowered the anchor and he then spotted the most peculiar sight. Little turtle seal hybrids popped out of the water and they were punching the air. Hey, what the heck are these things? Asked Usopp as he stopped from his sketching and he looked at the animals. Lucy looked over and she grinned. "Aw, those guys look so cute. I want one," she called as she jumped off the boat. "Wait, Lucy," called Vivi, but it was too late. One of the little turtle hybrids charged at Lucy with a whopping tail fin. Lucy easily dodged it and she gave the animal a roundhouse kick to the head. The other hybrids saw this and they suddenly had stars in their eyes as they all gathered around Lucy with yelps of happiness. They said that Lucy had just beaten their leader and they now want her to be their sensei, explained Chopper, who could understand any animal's tongue. Vivi sighed. I should have informed you about this sooner. These creatures are kung fu dugongs. They live in these types of rivers and they are well known for their martial arts skills. Their code of honor is that once one of them are defeated, the dugong then become the disciple of the person who had beaten them. I'm sorry, it must have slipped my mind, said the princess. Nami slapped her forehead. Great. Animals are wanting to become Lucy's disciples. What is this world coming to? The navigator asked herself. Lucy giggled and she hugged one of the dugongs. Ah, they're so cute. Can they come with us, please? Come on, look at their faces, said the captain as she held the little animal she was holding, who was giving a quivering lip and shiny puppy dog eyes. The other seals followed in suit. Both Nami and Vivi bit their lips. They had to admit, the little guys were really cute. Zoro had fortunately came to the rescue. They can't come with us, Lucy. They belong here, not with us. Tell them to find a new sensei so that way, we can get moving, said the dark-eyed man. With a pout of disappointment, Lucy gave a little peck on the forehead to the dugong she was holding and she sat him down, shaking her head to the herd. The hybrids gave tiny whimpers and they cuddled up to their gone-too-soon leader. Lucy gave a small sad smile and she got up, reluctantly following her group into the desert of Alabasta. SS Sanji, is the FF food done yet? Chattered Lucy as she pulled the red desert robes Vivi had given her closer to her body. After a long walk through sand dunes and scorching heat, the Straw Hats decided to spend the night by a few boulders. The cold weather of the night was chilling and all the members were huddling up to themselves or each other for warmth. Sanji nodded and he placed more firewood in the fire he had started. He was cooking up a bit of the meat he had packed and the food was almost done. Just a little longer, Lucy. This feast will be sure to warm us up, I'm sure, said the blue-eyed man as he sat next to Nami and Vivi. Lucy tied the blue cloth that was around her head tighter and she leaned against Ann.
Yo, quick pause, smash that like button, hit subscribe if you're new here, share this video, and tell me in the comments which part you're loving the most.
Who was having no trouble with the weather because of her devil fruit powers. Why you're so lucky, Ann. You don't need to worry about the cold. Why you're like a human oven, chatted Lucy. Ann laughed and she wrapped her arm around her little sister. There, feel warm, asked the older sister. Lucy mewed sleepily and before anyone knew it, the teen was out like a light. Ann smiled and she lowered her sister's hat over the younger D's eyes. The older, female member of D then looked at the Straw Hat crew. Softly, she said, thank you. The crew blinked, not getting what Ann was thanking them for. Ann's hand gently stroked her little sister's hair. I'm really grateful that my little bubble of a sister had found such good friends. When I left home and started on my own journey, I always found myself wondering if this little nutcase was alright. Call it a sister's worry, I guess. The tattooed-backed girl gave a soft smile to everyone else. You guys are an odd bunch, but you all seem to cope with each other and Lucy. Thanks for easing my worry. I now know that my sister is in good hands, she said. The people stared at Anne for a while, both touched and shocked from the flame girl's speech of gratitude. Nami then cleared her throat. It's nothing. If anything, we're all lucky that we met Lucy. We were all at troubled times and it seems that when Lucy came along, all our troubles just went away, said the orange-haired girl, remembering the day Lucy had saved her town from Arlong. Everyone else nodded, remembering their own times when Lucy had helped them out of the shackles of their misery. Vivi began petting Karu. It's almost as if Lucy has some sort of charm that makes people, even people who are her enemies, become great friends. My, she's just something else, isn't she? She asked. Everyone nodded and they all gave yawns, signaling that it was time to get to bed. Sanji decided to save the meat he cooked for tomorrow and everyone picked their own places to sleep. Zoro picked a place that was only a few feet from the D sisters. As he was just about to fall asleep, Anne spoke. You know, out of everyone here, I should be thanking you the most. Zoro cracked one eye opened at the older girl. Anne continued. Lucy told me all the adventures you guys had and that you were the first to become the member of her crew. You protected her through thick and thin and she seems to trust you more than the others. I swear, she talked non-stop about you, saying how cool you were and good a friend you are. The older sister smiled at her sleeping little sister. Lucis, really lucky to have someone like you in her life. I can't protect my sister as much as I used to and that gets me worried. But, Anne then smiled at the swordsman. I guess I was worried for nothing. Promise me you'll protect her when I have to leave, she said. For a while, Zoro was speechless. Anne had just told him how lucky Lucy was to have him and she wanted him to protect her little sister. This was defiantly one of the most important promises that he had to keep. His eyes locked on Lucy's sleeping form for a while. They then went back to Anne's brownish-blackish eyes. I promise, she won't be hurt as long as I'm around. I'll guard her with my life, he said. Anne's eyes flickered with a small spark of happiness before she grinned and closed her eyes, her big orange hat lowering over them. Thank you. Oh, and one more thing. Yeah, try to take advantage of my sister, and you'll end up with all your limbs broken in a charred ass. Oh oi, ha, just teasing. PFF'd, she's defiantly Lucy's older sister. The next morning, the desert group had set out to their desert journey. The weather was back to a bad boil and it looked like so far, nothing bad was going to happen. Wah, Lucis being chased by a sandor lizard. Why did I forget about them? Oi, Vivi, looks like I spoke too soon. Zoro and Sanji ran over to Lucy, who was coming in the opposite direction, riding on a camel she had found. Say Lucy, need a hand, yelled Zoro as he pulled out his swords. Lucy nodded and she jumped off the camel, her two friends following in suit. Gum gum, Tatsu epal maki, whip shoot. The three's combined attack struck the giant purple lizard on the head and killed it in an instant. The three all together pulled the reptile back to the group and they soon got to skinning it. Nami went as far as patting Lucis back. Great job, guys. Nothing less from our monster trio, she said. Lucy tilted her head. Since when are we called that? She asked. Nami just smiled. Because you three act like complete monsters when you fight together. Now, what are we gonna do about this cutie right here? Wanna be called Eyelash? Asked the navigator as she petted the camel, who gave a dreamy eye. This guy can give some help here. Alright, let's keep him, said Sanji. Eyelash began neighing something. He says, I will join you, but I will only carry the women. You other guys are just too heavy, said the reindeer. The men glared at the two-humped animal as he allowed Nami and Vivi on his back. The animal nudged at Lucy and Anne, but the two declined, preferring to walk rather than riding. The crew then set out again, hoping that nothing else bad would happen. Anne coolly tipped her hat and she looked at her handiwork. The giant scorpion she just barbecued twitched with its last senses of life and its skin glowed an unhealthy red. Can't say I didn't warn ya, said the flame girl as she walked away. Anne had somehow gotten separated from her little sister's group and she had just showed that poisonous animal what happens when you mess with a member of the D family. Anne stopped in her tracks when a human-sized lizard appeared in front of her. Anne raised her eyebrow and she stepped to the left. The lizard did the same. Anne took a step to the right. The lizard copied her move. Anne frowned and her left eye began twitching. Huh, so you wanna mess with me, too, huh? She asked, her head jerking to the dead scorpion. The lizard gave crocodile tears and it whimpered. Anne sighed and she walked over to the reptile, petting it on the head. Tell ya what, if you let me ride on your back, I won't kill ya. Deal, she asked. The lizard nodded and it allowed Anne to climb on his back. With a grab of his mane, Anne shouted, "Yeah." And the lizard began running. Are you sure you will still fight for us? Of course, sir. We may be rebels but we still hold loyalty to the king. You can be at ease. Oh thank you. Please, stay as long as you want. I leave you to your own. The blonde bounty hunter nodded as the mayor of the town he and his pals were staying left. He was about to get back to his dinning when golden-colored eyes stared at him. The bounty hunter blinked at the lizard as his ears picked up a slurping sound. He and his pals turned to see Anne sitting next to them. Anne wiped her mouth and she looked at each of them. Oi, what kind of crap were you giving that guy back there? I almost feel sorry for fakers like you, she said. The bounty hunter's men grew angry and they all charged at Anne with their weapons. Anne rolled her eyes. How stupid were these guys? The bounty hunter winced as he watched all his men get beaten up by the dark-eyed girl. Said girl sat back down and she held up an empty bowl. More, she said bluntly. The man didn't hesitate 1 second. Yes, here you go, miss. Sorry for my men just attacking you like that, he said as he refilled Anne's bowl and handed the soup back to Anne. The flame-using girl took the bowl while continuing to eat. This place has good food, huh? Asked Anne as she slurped at her soup. The man nodded in agreement with a sweat drop. Yes, I am glad you're enjoying it, he said. On the inside, he was scared to nearly wetting himself. This girl had just knocked out his men in 5 seconds flat without even breaking a sweat. She was obviously different from other women. He bowed to the ground. Please, you really must help us. You have extraordinary strength for a woman like you. I truly am sorry for the attack and I hope you find it in your heart to help us, he begged. Anne took a sip of water and she scratched her hair, a bit of sand dusting out of those wavy locks. Fine, the whole thing sounds alright, I guess. You just gotta do one thing for me, she said, the grin of D appearing on her lips. Meanwhile, Lucy and company were walking thought sand dunes as they tried to suppress the heat. They had just traveled a day without any sign of a town or Anne. Just when they didn't expect anything else, riding over the horizon came Anne, right on the back of the lizard she caught with loads of food and water as well. It's Anne, yelled Lucy excitedly as she rushed over to her older sister. Anne halted her reptilian friend and she climbed down it, meeting her little sister. Where have you been, sis? And where did you get the food? Asked Lucy. Anne poured a cup of water for her sister and she poured one for herself. Just promised some pretend rebels I'd get rid of these sand pirates that were coming over to their town. Looks like you guys are the one they were talking about, said the orange hat wearing girl as she tossed everyone an apple. That isn't right, we have to do something about them, said Vivi. Anne smiled and she tossed her apple in the air, catching it and taking a bite out of the fruit's flesh. I'd figured you would say something like that, Vivi. That's why I got a plan. But, I need all your help with it, she said. The group thought for a moment before agreeing with the older D. This plan of hers might be interesting. When the next hour passed, the fake rebels attempted to ditch the town by the gates. Before they even made it 5 feet away from the gate, they stopped in fear as all the men and the captain of the Straw Hat crew gathered around them. Each of them were standing coolly with crossed arms and hidden looks. Lucy looked up and she gave an unamused look. So you're rebels, right? She asked in a dry voice. The blonde man flinched, growing scared of the girl before him. No. You have it all wrong, miss. We were just simple travelers. He stuttered. At the sound of his lie, Lucy's blood went ablaze and she threw her fist back. With a snarl, she threw her fist with her rubber power. Gum pistol, she yelled as her fist punched the man in the face directly. The blonde man fell back and he groaned in pain, the trails of blood leaving his nose and mouth. Lucy clenched her teeth and she walked forward, cracking her knuckles as she came closer and closer to the man's group. Before she even laid a finger on one of them, her hand was stopped by the blonde man, who was holding the girl's wrist with a shaking hand. We lied. We aren't real rebel soldiers. We only just had dreams of becoming like them. We did nothing but lying and we should be ashamed of that. But, the man's fingers tightened around Lucy's wrist, his eyes giving a look of honesty and determination. I will never back down now. I will do whatever in my power to beat someone like you. He yelled as he punched Lucy with his free hand. Lucy fell to the ground and she slowly pressed her hand to her bruised cheek. Slowly, a smile tugged on her lips. With a smirk now on her face, she got up and she started to run away. Wow, you guys are stronger than I thought. You guys showed me. Retreat, she yelled, winking at her crew. The guys got her message and they retreated as well, satisfied with their work. Okay, let's eat. Everyone gave thanks and they got down to eating. After the crew had left the town of the fake rebels, they had stopped by some big rocks in order to get some food into their stomachs. As they ate, Nami and Vivi couldn't help but notice the eating habits of the D sisters. While Lucy gobbled up her food like animal, Anne was busy cleaning up her dishes and utensils on her own. The lizard Anne had captured was right at her feet, licking up scraps that fell from the girl's plate. It seemed that the reptile had taken a liking to Anne and the dark-eyed girl didn't mind having him around. She had even given him a name, Draco. Anne would occasionally smile at the lizard, petting him from time to time. Isn't it strange how these two look so alike yet they act so different? Asked Vivi. Nami nodded and fanned her face. Yeah, one sister is calm and collective while the other is childish and eccentric. Though, I'm not surprised that the both of these two are strong. Especially Anne, said Nami.
Yo, quick pause, smash that like button, hit subscribe if you're new here, share this video, and tell me in the comments which part you're loving the most.
Vivi cocked her head. What do you mean? She asked. Well, remember when Lucy told us that Anne uses a medicine to become a guy? Asked the navigator. Vivi nodded. Well, I've heard of, him. He is known as, Fire Fist, Ace. His bounty is so high that any bounty hunter in the world would try to catch him. No one ever knew who exactly Ace was or where he came from. Well, I guess we know now, huh? Asked the girl as she watched Anne walk over to Lucy and give her head a pat. Lucy giggled and she smiled at her sister, who smiled back. The older sister then blinked at one direction and she suddenly started sprinting off. Draco followed her in tow with Anne's bag. Anne, where are you going? Yelled Lucy, getting up and running after her sister. The older Dee continued to run until she stopped and looked down at the two little boys that were hiding behind some rocks. They both had dark sandy-colored hair and dark blue eyes. The eldest one pointed a gun at the black-haired pirate. Saint, stay back. I'll shoot, he yelled. Anne raised a brow and she took a step forward. The boy fired the pistol and Anne gave an expert-like kick, crushing the bullet in an instant. The boys cowered, afraid of what the girl's next move would be. Anne kneeled to the boys and she gave a soft smile. Hey, calm down. I won't hurt you, she said in a soft tone. She was experienced with situations like this. When Lucy would get scared when they were kids, Anne made sure she had to speak softly and calmly. This was the only way to gain a child's trust. If you took small steps to make friends with them, then they'll grow close to you. And Anne was following just by that principle. What are you guys doing here? Are you lost? Asked Anne gently. The older boy took a gulp and shook his head. Anne, no. We're looking for a bounty hunter, he stuttered. Anne blinked in surprise and the other little boy pulled out a picture, handing it to Anne. The man in the picture almost resembled the kids and he looked like a simple farmer. This man was supposed to be a bounty hunter. Huh, so what's his name? Asked the freckled-faced girl. Scorpion, said the older boy. Anne's eyes widened slightly. That's when the Straw Hat Gang arrived, minus Lucy. Anne explained the deal with the others and she showed the picture. Believe it or not, Scorpion is the name of the man I'm searching for. He's claimed to have beaten Blackbeard. That's the whole reason I'm going to Yuba, to ask where Blackbeard is in that town, said Anne. Everyone gasped and they took a look of the picture. Say Anne, are you sure that guy looks strong enough to beat Blackbeard? Asked Usopp. Anne shrugged. Beats me, but I guess I should take him on. You never know, said the Flame Devil Fruit girl as she took her bag from Draco and pulled out her medicine bottle. I still need one more ingredient for my medicine but I guess this stuff could last me for a while, said Anne as she uncorked the bottle and drank its liquid. A flame surrounded Anne and her appearance changed into Ace. Ace pulled off his shirt and he tucked it in his bag. The little boys gasped. You're, Fire Fist, Ace. Why are you a girl? Exclaimed the little boy. Ace opened his mouth to speak but he then closed it, his eyes looking forward. Someone's coming, he muttered. As sure as the ocean was blue, something did come galloping over. It was an ostrich ridden by the man in the picture, with Lucy sitting behind him. The ostrich stopped and the man suddenly began to shake. I am the great Scorpion, feared bounty hunter, and I am here to catch you, Fire Fist, Ace. He yelled as he launched a net at Ace. The young man smirked and he dodged the net in a flash. Ace then ran forward and he kicked the man good in the gut, sending him flying to a group of tall rocks. Dad, yelled the two little boys as they ran over to their fallen father. Everyone blinked in surprise and Ace walked over to the family. Scorpion held the boys tightly in his arms and he glared at Ace. Saint, stay back, I won't let you hurt my sons, he snarled. Ace gave a smile. I see, now I know why you kids wanted to find this man. He left your home to find me, huh? He asked. The little boys nodded slowly. Yeah, we live so poorly and we were sad about it. Dad wanted to show us that dreams could be fulfilled, even to the weakest of people, said the oldest brother. Ace nodded in agreement and he suddenly felt something light fall on his head. He looked up just in time to see the boulders of the tall rocks falling near them. The farm family yelled in fear. Fire Fist, yelled Ace as he threw a flaming punch. The rocks were blown away by the fire and the hot air whipped around the area. When the air died down, Ace knelt to the ground and he held his hand out to Scorpion. Go back with your sons. It seems that they want your love more than anything else. A father's love, anyone would die for something that great, said the freckled boy. If anyone were close enough, they could see something flash past Ace's extremely dark brown eyes. Scorpion looked to his children, the Fire Fist. He then nodded and he hugged his sons tighter. You're right, I'm sorry but, I also lied about Blackbeard. He hasn't come around these parts, he said. Ace sighed and he lowered his head, half of his face being shadowed. It was nice that he had gotten the family together again but, it didn't really help on his mission. So, you're really leaving us, Anne? The Fire Power girl nodded, her medicine worn off a while ago just as the sun was setting. The Straw Hat Gang had said their goodbyes to the farm family and Anne was taking her leave, since Blackbeard wasn't around. Anne tied her bag around Draco's neck and the young woman turned to her sister and crew. Kind of. I still need to make a stop at a certain town in order to finish the rest of my medicine. Then I'll be out of here, she said. You've only traveled with us for a couple of days or so. When will we see you again? Asked Sanji. Anne shrugged and she pulled something out of her pocket. I don't know. Soon, I hope. It was nice meeting all of you. Oh yeah, here, Luce, said the dark-haired girl as she threw her little sister a sheet of folded paper. Lucy caught it and blinked. What is it? She asked as she unfolded the paper, seeing that it was blank. Trust me, that piece of paper will keep us together, if you don't want it. Nah, I'll keep it, interrupted the younger D as she folded the paper and tucked it in her hat. Anne smiled and she bowed her head. Thanks for everything. Lucy's a real handful, but I sure hope you'll all take good care of her for me, she said. Her eyes went up slowly and she gave Zoro a knowing look. Zoro returned the look with a nod, knowing that it was now his job to look after Lucy. Anne then got up and she pointed in a random direction suddenly. Elephant, she exclaimed. Everyone turned to see why Anne had suddenly yelled elephant when they saw that nothing was there. They turned back again and they saw that Anne had disappeared, along with Draco. She's gone. How odd, said Vivi. Lucy smiled and she turned around. Come on, we'll see her again someday. Let's just get going, she said. The crew stared at their captain before nodding in agreement. With that, the team set off again. If that monster had a kid, what a load of bull. Hell yeah, hell would freeze over if a spawn like that was born. Anne sighed sadly as she rode Draco through the cold night of the desert. Her long hair flew behind her like the tail of a dragon's. After seeing the bounty hunter's family, those memories that she so desperately tried to forget came back to her. Her own words were staring to haunt her. A father's love, anyone would die for something that great. Draco made a slight click, seeing his rider's worry. Anne smiled sadly and she patted her lizard's mane. I'm fine. I'm just sad that I had to leave my little sister so early. I really do hope I see her again. Even though we're not related, Anne's dark eyes looked to the starlit sky, those beautiful orbs of light making her eyes turn a softer brown. She's the only family I have left, she whispered, her hand going to her S tattoo. Anne sighed again and she slightly kicked Draco's side. I shouldn't be thinking of that right now. Because it's like they say. If let the fog of your past blur your vision, you'll never see what lays in the future. With that said, Anne rode off into the night, her fog of the past blew right out of her mind. Chapter 16, Countdown till Zero. Man, did you have to get us lost, Zoro? What are you talking about, you brat? You're the one who got us lost when you drank up that cactus juice. But I was thirsty. Enough, you guys. We need to find the others. Both Lucy and Zoro huffed in annoyance and they turned away from each other while Chopper's sweat dropped. How the three of them got lost from the others is simple. Lucy drank some cactus juice, she got more nuts than usual, she and Zoro fought, and well, you guys do the math. The three of them were trudging through the heated sand and they felt as dry as a cracker with baking powder. Lucy looked forward and she trudged ahead. I'm gonna see if there's gonna be a town or something coming up, she said as she walked ahead. The other two made no arguments and they walked in silence. Until Chopper broke it. Hey, Zoro, can I ask you something? Asked the reindeer. Zoro nodded, wiping a layer of sweat off his forehead. You're the first one to join Lucy's crew, right? Well, what made you join? Zoro scratched the back of his head and he thought for a second. In all honesty, I really don't know myself. When I first met Lucy and when she asked me to join her crew, I refused right away. I wanted nothing to do with pirates. I hunted them, not joined them. But then, Zoro suddenly halted and he looked toward the clear blue sky. When we fought together, when me and Lucy worked to beat that Captain Morgan guy, I saw that Lucy was more than just some idiot pirate. Lucy's a strong person, she fights for what's right and she doesn't care if she has to die fighting for it. She's one of those people with those kinds of spirits that no one would be able to break. To put it simple, Lucy is. Zoro paused when he saw that Chopper was giving a light smile. What? Chopper continued to smile. It really seems that you care for Lucy a lot. You look like you don't want to lose her, he said. Zoro turned away to hide his embarrassed blush. Well, she is my captain. If we lose her, we're all lost, he muttered. Chopper smiled again and he looked ahead, noticing that Lucy was waving them over. He can even hear her calling them. Guys, hurry up, the others are this way. I saw them. Come on, slowpokes, she called as she frantically waved. Zoro rolled his eyes to Chopper. Come on, let's go, he said. He then stopped. By the way, why did you ask me that question anyway? He asked. Chopper walked ahead without looking back. Just out of curiosity, he said simply. Zoro raised his brow but he said no more as he followed the doctor. Meanwhile, the reindeer smiled in his mind. Well, I did what Nami told me. I wonder why she wanted me to ask Zoro about that anyway. Chopper just shook his head and he and Zoro walked off to Lucy and the trio soon found the others. Their journey to Yuba was back in motion. Vivi. Is that you? Vivi stopped in her tracks and she turned to the old voice that called to her. The team had just finally made it to Yuba and they had discovered that the town was already taken by a sandstorm. They were just passing some sand pits when the old voice had called Vivi. It was an old man with white hair and dusty desert robes. He looked like he was on the brink of tears as he walked over to Vivi. The princess looked at him with wide eyes, instantly recognizing him. "T2," she asked in a whisper. The old man smiled and he hugged Vivi tightly. Both of them wept and cried. There was no doubt that they were happy to see each other. The crew allowed them to have their moment. Vivi turned to them and she explained that Tuda was the father of an old friend she knew a long time ago. Tuda had tearful explained how he had tried to convince people to have faith in Vivi's father, King Cobra, but his pleas were fruitless. The turmoil that was already caused with the rebel armies had been too strong and it seemed that all hope was lost. The old man had kindly offered them a place for the night while Lucy decided to help him dig the holes he was digging. "Hey, old guy, why are you digging these holes again?" asked Lucy as she dug up a part of a giant hole. "This place is still the oasis. It's just buried under the sand. We need to dig it up in order to find the water that lies under the sand," explained Tutu as he dug. "There's water down here, Yahoo! Let's get diggin'," cheered the raven-haired girl as she dug like a mole. "Hold on, quit it, kid. Every time you dig up your hole, mine gets refilled. You're just causing us both a paradox. Do you get it?" snapped the man. Lucy stared at him before she drew her thoughts to a conclusion. "Ah, so it's a mystery hole," she concluded. Tutu faced palmed and he then went back to his work. After about an hour or so, the old man realized that Lucy was being really quiet. No sand was coming his way and the girl had made no complaints. With interest, the old man walked over and saw that the rubber girl had dug a hole that was at least 10 feet deep. At the bottom of the hole was Lucy, who was sleeping soundly. With a soft smile, the old man quietly and carefully got her out of the hole and he took her over to the house he had given the others to sleep in. He walked into the house and he placed her between Chopper and Zoro. He then walked out of the house quietly. Lucy stirred slightly and her eyes opened a bit, sleepiness clouded in them. Unconsciously, the captain crawled over to Zoro and she snuggled up to him, wrapping her arms around his torso and nuzzling her head to the swordsman's chest. Zoro," she whispered softly, her tired mind recognizing his pine-like scent. Zoro grunted slightly and his eyes opened. His eyes widened when he saw Lucy sleeping next to him so close, but they quickly softened when he saw that Lucy was so content. With a yawn, he wrapped one arm around Lucy and he pulled her closer to him. He did, after all, promised Anne that he would take care of her sister. That meant guarding her in sleep, too. Then again, he was too tired to point it out. With a rare smile, he fell asleep with Lucy in his arms. "Thanks, old guy. And thanks for the water, too." The entire crew waved goodbye to the next morning. Before leaving, the old man had given Lucy the water she had dug up from her big hole. The water was enough for one mini jug full. The teen was now walking through hot weather. They were sort of now used to when Lucy had suddenly stopped. She sat cross-legged on the ground with crossed arms and an unusually serious look on her face. The crew stopped and they stared at their captain. "Is something wrong, Lucy?" asked Vivi as the crew stared at the girl. The teen pirate was silent before she blurted, "I quit." Everyone stared at her with wide eyes before Nami yelled, "What do you mean, I quit? What the heck does it mean?" Lucy lowered her head and the rim of her hat hit her eyes. "I'm talking about all of this. Sure, we can stop the rebellion if we tried, but we can't stop Crocodile just like that. We're pirates, for crying out loud. They wouldn't want us around," shouted the girl. Vivi held her hand out, trying to reason with the captain, but, Lucy. "No, Vivi, you get what I mean. All these odds are against us. You want to make sure no one gets hurt, but we're fighting against Baroque works and your people as well. Not to mention the fact that Crocodile is one of the 7 warlords, too. If you think that we can save anyone without anybody getting hurt or dying," Lucy's onyx black eyes pierced through Vivi's. "You're sadly mistaken." Vivi's teeth gritted with anger and she did the unthinkable. She stomped over to Lucy and she slapped her hard on her cheek, knocking the girl off her feet. Everyone gasped yet they made no movement. They were all too shocked to believe what had just happened. "What's wrong with that? What's wrong with making sure that people are alright?" yelled Vivi angrily. Her blood was sent on a raging boil and her mind was prickling with anger. Lucy staggered to her feet and with a mad cry, she lunged and tackled Vivi to the ground. "Because everything gets hurt and everything dies. You can't stop that, no matter what you try," yelled Lucy with fire in her voice. Vivi yelled and she madly kicked, making Lucy the one pinned to the sand while the princess angrily slapped her face dead on. Lucy made no yelp and she gave a strangled glare. "Well, if you want to risk your life, then at least let us risk ours, too. We are friends, aren't we?" yelled the teen madly. Vivi stopped her slapping and she stared at Lucy. Blood was running out of Lucy's mouth, nose, and under her eye and there were many bruises on her face. Yet not a sign of pain was shown on said face. Only truth. Vivi placed her hand over her mouth and she began to cry and sob. Lucy smiled softly and she slowly sat up, allowing Vivi off her. The raven-haired girl grabbed her straw hat and she brushed sand out of it. As Vivi cried, Lucy got up and she wiped blood off her lip. She then walked over to Vivi and she placed her clean hand on the blue-haired girl's shoulder. The other girl looked at Lucy with a look of sadness and regret. Lucy looked back, but with her soft smile on her lips. Now let's get Crocodile. Phew, I heard the heat around here is bad, but this is ridiculous. Click, click, hiss, chirp. Well yeah, I can deal with this kind of heat sometimes but never all the time. Hiss, click, chip, chirp. Well gee, wise guy. Do you see any cafe or something in this town? Chirp, chirp, hiss, hiss. What are you? Oh, what do you know, you were right. The woman cloaked in a black and orange flamed robe and the lizard that followed her made their way into a place called the Sand Cafe. The two walked in and they sat themselves on bar stools. They were ever so conveniently sitting next to a couple of familiar Marines. Captain Smoker, what makes you think that the Straw Hat Pirates are coming here? Asked Tashigi as she took a drink of her cup of water. Smoker took gulps of his ale and he placed his mug down. It has something to do with Crocodile, Tashigi. Both him and Straw Hat are connected somehow. Something just doesn't seem right, muttered the Marine. He then felt someone poking at his back and he turned to the woman sitting next to him. Hey, can you tell me where the herb shop around here is? I just arrived here a few hours ago, said the cloaked person. Tashigi looked over and smiled at the woman. You can find it just a few blocks from here. You can't miss it, ma'am, she said. The woman smiled and she bowed her head. Thanks. Nice date you got there, Smokey. Smoker nearly chocked on his drink and he stared into the mischievous dark eyes of the woman he now most despised. In one swift movement, soft lips pecked at his rough cheek and the woman with the lizard were on the run. It only took 5 seconds for Smoker's face to turn 5 shades of red and for him to start chasing after the woman, losing himself. Portgas. Ah, glad you remembered me, Smokey. Anne laughed a hearty laugh as her hood flew off her and her long black locks danced as she ran away from the pissed-off Marine. She found his angered red face very funny. She didn't know why but she felt like Smoker was different from all the other Marines. He was certainly much more fun to tease with. She also did appreciate that the muscles of his pale chest were shown off and very well muscular. Anne then shook her head at her thoughts. What the hell was that? Sure, the guy looks pretty strong but that means nothing. All Marine captains look strong. Then again, no of them have his rough voice and silver eyes, and then blushed faintly and she continued to run with Draco by her side and Smoker right on her tail. Get back here, Portgas! Yelled Smoker angrily. Nah, this game of tag we're playing is too much fun to stop. You know the rules. You gotta catch me first. Called Anne. She tapped Draco on the head. Draco, we're gonna have to separate for a while. I want you to head to the herb shop and find some dance powder. That's the one thing I need for my medicine. I'll meet you later, alright? She asked. The reptile nodded obediently and the two ran at different crossroads with Smoker following Anne. The flame girl took a turn around an abandoned alley and she gulped, realizing she was in a dead end. The black-haired girl turned just to see Smoker cornering her in. Nowhere to go, Portgas. In last words, asked the Marine threateningly as his smoked fist drew back. Anne took in a shaky breath and her ears caught a distant sound. She looked up at the sky and then towards Smoker and she shouted, "Look out." She suddenly jumped and pushed Smoker to the ground. Smoker's eyes went wide as the two tumbled away. Portgas, what are you? Smoker's yell died when a sudden explosion rang through his ears and hot air blew and sand blew into his eyes. His eyes went shut as he and Anne were blown away by the giant explosion. When the two finally came to a stop, Smoker opened his eyes and they widened at the black scorch marks of a bomb. The man was lost for words and Anne gave a cough. Say Smoker, you're kind of holding on too tight there, muttered the pirate. Smoker looked and he realized that his arms were around Anne's waist tightly. Anne's hands were pressed up against his chest and the Marine nearly shivered at the warm touch of the girl's palms. He then shoved Anne away and he got up, brushing sand off his jacket. He then stared at Anne in bewilderment as she got up and shook sand out of her hair. The 21-year-old then noticed that the Marine captain was staring at her. What? She asked. Smoker cleared his throat and his face went dead serious. You saved me when that bomb came. Why? He asked. He had never, not once in his life, thought that he would use the words, save, and, pirate, in the same sentence. It made the part of justice in his mind curse while his heart feel slightly grateful. Anne looked at her hat and she went up and down on her toes. She was suddenly feeling embarrassment and shyness stir in her stomach. A blush had made its way to her ears and cheeks. It would have been boring if you died. There would be no one fun to mess with, she mustered up to say. Smoker took notice of the girl's pink face but he decided to draw his attention to the bomb scorch marks. He walked over and he looked at the dust powder. Who attacked us? He asked himself. Anne walked over and she found a piece of shelling that was left from the bomb. She saw that there was the Baroque Works symbol on it and she frowned. Baroque Works. My guess is that some of them found out I was traveling with Lucy and they wanted to get rid of me, she muttered to herself. Baroque Works. That underground organization led by Mr. Zero? Asked Smoker. Anne nodded and she fingered the shelling in her hands. Yeah, Luce told me that Mr. Zero is actually the guy who owns the casino around here. His name is Crocodile, she said. Smoker couldn't believe this, so that was why the Straw Hats had been connected to Crocodile. He was in charge of the organization. He stared at the shelling as well and his mind went into conflict. He was planning on saying and doing something he knew he would kick himself for later. Portgas, I'll make you a deal, he said. Anne looked up and saw that Smoker's eyes bore into hers. His gray eyes looked so intent and serious as they stared at Anne's dark brown, childlike eyes. If you assist me to find Mr. Zero, then I promise that I won't capture you for this time, he said. Anne's mouth dropped slightly and she took one step toward the Marine. You want me to help you? She asked in a whisper. Smoker clenched his teeth. Assist, Portgas. I said assist. As soon as it's all over, then we become enemies again, muttered the gray-haired man. Anne looked at the ground for a minute, her own thoughts racking in her mind. A pirate helping a Marine. That sound as crazy as a cat and dog raising a family together. But she had to admit, after what she heard from Lucy, it looked like Baroque works had to be stopped soon. Her sister was involved in this and Anne knew that the kid needed all the help she could get. Anne looked back to Smoker and she nodded. Okay, I will assist you. You just also gotta promise that you won't capture my little sister and her crew if they come around, said the brown-eyed girl. Smoker gave a firm nod back. As he and Anne walked slowly out of the alley, Anne asked the million-berry question. So, how are we going to stop Crocodile? I hear that his place is guarded with all those members of his. Smoker muttered something under his breath but Anne heard it. We need to get in his casino. Well, how do we do that? Asked Anne. Smoker muttered something again. Come again. You're going to have to be my date. Quote. Pardon. Lucy's head turned in different directions, as if she was expecting something to happen. Something wrong, Lucy? Asked Usopp, noticing her quick head jerks. Lucy shook her head and shrugged. I don't know. I thought I heard something weird, she said. Usopp raised his eyebrow but he decided not to ask further. The Straw Hat Gang had found themselves in a big town called Rain Basin. They had just bought a few barrels of water that could last them for a week or so. The team then came to a town square and they stopped. Alright guys, me, Vivi, Eyelash, and Sanji will look around and see if we can get some info on Crocodile. Lucy, Zoro, Usopp, and Chopper will go and check out the casino. I heard that Crocodile is going to be holding some sort of event there. Okay, asked Nami. The pirates nodded and they all went off in their separate groups. Lucy's group walked around for a bit until they saw a huge line of carriages coming around and making their way to a giant, reptile-like building. In big printed letters were the words, Rain Dinners. Looks like Nami was right. There is something big going on, said Chopper. It looks like some sort of party, commented Usopp as they watched many people ride in carriages, camels, and on barefoot as they walked to the building. We need to get in there. But how? Asked Zoro to himself. His eyes scanned the area until a piece of paper fell on his head. Hundreds of others followed after it and it came from a mysterious condor. The green-haired swordsman took the piece of paper off his head and he noticed that it was like an advertisement poster. It announced that a young lady from an important family was going to be at the party. Zoro looked at the girl's picture and his eyes widened. The girl looked just like. A sly smirk made its way onto Zoro's lips and his forest green eyes looked to the female captain. With that smirk and look still on his face, Zoro asked in fake innocence, Lucy, how would you like to have all the meat you could eat? Lucy's eyes lit up like a Christmas tree. All I could eat? Where? How? Why? She asked excitedly. Zoro's eyes still gave off their glint. At that casino. But first, we're gonna have to go in incognito, he said. The two teens and Animal blinked. Just where was Zoro getting at? Captain Smoker. Thank you for attending Sir Crocodile's gala. It's the least I could do. He is a hero, after all. Ah, and I see you have a date. Oh, how lovely she is. Yes, very lovely. Smoker felt a vile taste in his mouth. To say that a pirate was lovely made him want to jump off a bridge. Unfortunately to him, his arm was hooked around Anne's as the two walked into the grand ballroom of the Rain Dinners casino. The ballroom had beautiful, crystal-like chandeliers with painted white flowers on the walls. Vases of enchanting flowers were around and many wealthy-looking folk were around as well, either enjoying a piece of gourmet food or laughing at a joke that someone had said. Smoker looked straight ahead and he tried his best to ignore the stares he was getting. He was known to never take anything of interest outside of his job. And now here he was, his arm looped with a woman's. And a beautiful one at that. Because of such an event, Smoker had made Anne change into something that would be more presentable than her backless shirt, shorts, boots, beads, and orange hat. The firepower girl wore a black, Egyptian-style corset with arm-length sleeves. She also wore a black and red skirt that reached below her knees, red sandals at her feet, bangles and anklets were on her wrist and ankles, and a red veil hid the bottom half of her face. Smoker had to admit, Anne looked extraordinary, for a pirate, of course. Though he wouldn't tell that out loud to his, date. So, what should we do now, Smokey? Asked Anne as she lifted her veil slightly. We need to wait until Crocodile shows up. Until then, we should blend in. said the Marine as he let go of Anne and brought out 2 new cigars. He reached around his pockets for his lighter when he noticed that the 2 nicotine bundles were already lit up. Smoker gave a look to Anne, who smiled childishly behind her veil with a shrug. "Come on, Smokey. Let's walk around and see if we can spot Crocodile anywhere," said the dark-haired girl, taking Smoker's hand and leading him off. The captain tried to ignore the warm feeling Anne's hand was giving his and he followed Anne. "Ah, Zoro, do I have to wear this?" Lucy scratched at the veil that hid the bottom half of her face. Zoro sighed and he nodded. "Yes, Lucy, you're supposed to look like that girl from that guest poster and we need you to be quiet. Just sit there and don't say anything," said the swordsman. Lucy pouted and she looked over the new clothing that Zoro had, borrowed from a passing carriage. She wore a dark red dress top with a light red skirt and red slippers. A red veil concealed her mouth and nose, and on the girl's head was another red veil, one that hid some of her raven black hair. The pirate captain was riding on Chopper in his walk point form with Usopp on her left and Zoro on her right. Her first mate's plan was simple. Lucy and the person from the guest poster had almost looked alike and the crew decided to use Lucy for their way in. All Lucy would have to do was keep quiet and ride Chopper. When the 4 made it to the front door, the 2 guards at the door looked skeptical before allowing them in. Lucy got off Chopper and the reindeer changed into his Brian Point. Lucy looked around the party and she sighed, scratching at her skirt. "I hate this skirt. Can we go get some meat now, Zoro?" asked the girl. Zoro sighed in annoyance. "Fine. Usopp, Chopper, you guys look over there. Me and Lucy will look this way," he said. The 2 groups separated and they searched. As the 2 walked, Zoro could see that lecherous eyes were groping at Lucy. Instinctively and with a bit of protectiveness, Zoro put one arm around Lucy's waist with a light grip. Lucy looked at Zoro's arm and then at the samurai. "Zoro?" she asked, a warm blush coming to her cheeks. Zoro's face flushed scarlet at the soft and innocence of his captain's voice and he looked at her, his heart skipping a beat as he saw that Lucy looked very cute in her Arabian garments. "You can never be too careful, Captain," he said, turning his head away. Lucy nodded and she smiled softly, looking straight ahead with Zoro's arm still at her waist. The 2 then took notice of a giant pair of doors that read, "VIP room." "Let's check it out. Maybe we'll find Crocodile," said Lucy. Zoro nodded and he called Usopp and Chopper over. Lucy hid behind a planter and she quickly changed into her original clothes. As they walked near the room, Smoker had spotted them. "It's Straw Hat," he said under his breath. Anne looked up expectantly. "Really? Huh, guess they decided to come here. Come on, let's follow them," she said just as the 4 Straw Hats entered the room. Anne did the same quick change as her sister had done and the other 2 followed the other 4 in tow. The 4 pirates made their way down a long hallway until they came to a dead end. Anne and Smoker were right behind them just when the floor collapsed under them and everybody yelled as they fell through the floor. They all landed in a heap and they groaned in pain. Lucy was the first to get up and notice Anne. "Big sis, what are you doing here? And why's Smokey here, too?" called the little sister as she hugged her big sister. Anne hugged her back. "It's a long story, sis. More importantly, what are you doing here? I thought you guys were in Yuba," she said. Lucy scratched the back of her neck and shrugged. She suddenly felt a wave of dizziness hit her head and she fell forward, her sister catching her in time. "Luce, what's oh?" Anne exclaimed as she fell to her knees slightly, feeling her stomach turn in flip-flops and her muscles beginning to weaken. "What's happening to them?" asked Chopper worriedly, running over and checking the 2 sisters. The both of them were breathing heavily and groaning in pain. Smoker exhaled his cigar smoke. "This prison is made of the same type of sea stone that's in my jute. And as you know, this type of stone is nearly the same as the water of the sea. It makes all devil fruit users incredibly weak," said the gray-eyed man, feeling his own energy slowly draining. "Why, you are correct, Captain Smoker," said a gruff voice. The 4 people standing turned to see a man standing a few feet from the cage. His skin was a dull gray and he had slicked back, black hair with reptile-like eyes. He wore a heavy green robe and in his mouth was a cigar. Across his face was a stitched scar and on one of his hands was a golden hook. The whole crew could already tell who it was. "So you're Crocodile," breathed Lucy tiredly. Crocodile gave a sly smile, his down-looking eyes almost looking pitiful. "Indeed. And you must be that little girl who's been running amok to my organization." "My, and I thought you would be stronger," said the warlord. Lucy glared at him and she tried standing up, and following the same. Crocodile walked 1 foot closer and his smirk grew. "My, isn't this pitiful? I've captured not only 5 pirates but a marine captain as well. Oh, what tragedy and dishonor will it be when I drown you." Unless of course, the man walked closer. "You tell me where Princess Vivi is and you 2 beautiful ladies become members of my organization," he said, a lewd glint in his eyes. Zoro stood protectively next to Lucy. "Why in hell would you want her for? You just said you thought she'd be stronger," he muttered. Crocodile blew out his cigar smoke. "True, but they can be used for other reasons," he said, his smirk never leaving his face. Zoro gave a low growl behind his throat. The man was an old perv. Lucy glared at him as well. As if I ever join you. Right, Anne, yelled the girl. Anne nodded in agreement. Yeah, as if I would join a old geezer like you. She yelled angrily, deeply insulted. Crocodile gave a frown. Pity, you two would have be living in the laps of luxury. Ah well, might as well drown you, he said as a sudden whirlwind of sand came from his hand and shot at the glass wall of his underwater room. The glass slowly began to crack and Crocodile slowly took his leave. If you people survive, which I doubt, a letter will be waiting for you at the front door of the casino. Have a good swim, called the sand-wielding man mockingly as he stepped out of the room, just in time for the glass to break. Water gushed into the room quickly and everyone gave yells as they were all separated from the water. An hour later, the casino known as Rain Dinners was now sunken. Everyone from Crocodile's party had made it out and it was just reaching sunset. In a small, waterlogged area, a few bubbles popped from the water and Lucy, Chopper, and Usopp came from it. Usopp helped Lucy and Chopper to land and they all choked on water. When they gained their breath, they looked around the others. A few minutes later, Zoro came up with both Anne and Smoker. He placed the two, knocked out Logia users to land. Lucy noticed that her sister's body was twitching and that her hands were red. What happened to Anne? Asked Lucy as she looked over her sister's hands. Zoro coughed up a bit of water and he looked to Anne. She tried, saving him. When the cage broke, Anne used her devil fruit powers to make her fire turn into a gas, causing her and Smoker to float up a few feet. But Anne got weak because of the water and I had to pull the both of them up, said the first mate. Lucy looked at Anne with curious and worried eyes. Said girl woke up and she hacked up some water. She took deep breaths and she looked at everyone. Are you guys okay? She asked. The miners nodded and Anne looked at Smoker. Smokey, you still with us? She asked, her voice laced with worry and concern. Smoker's eyes twitched and he woke up, sitting up and coughing. He rubbed his head and he looked at the different people. We survived, he asked himself. He then noticed Anne's red hands. Portgas, what happened? He asked. The older pirate looked away with red splashed on her cheeks. She brought her hands together and she rubbed them slightly. She was going to tell a lie when Lucy beat her to it. My big sis saved you, Smokey. She got her hands burnt because of it, said the younger sister. Anne's blush grew and she wanted to strangle her adoptive sister a bit. Smoker looked with surprise and doubt at Lucy, then at Anne. His teeth gritted and he shot a glare at her. You damn pirate, you got injured just to save me. What in the name of the seven hells is wrong with you? Why did you save me, a marine, who's after your head? He snapped. He felt anger at the pit of his stomach. He didn't know if it came from his anger towards a pirate saving his life twice or from the anger he was having towards himself. He had caused her to get her hands burned. That was not how he wanted things to be. Anne looked up at him, her big brown eyes full of truth and slight shyness. I honestly don't know. My body just did what my mind told. I felt like, I just couldn't let you die, she whispered as she looked away once more, her blush reappearing on her cheeks. Smoker looked away as well, feeling the prickling warmth of a blush coming to his face. He suppressed it as hard as he could and he cleared his throat. Well then, I suppose that I will allow you, just this one last time, to escape. Now, Crocodile said something about a letter. Where was that again? He asked. The rest of the crew got up and they searched around. Lucy then spotted a letter on the ground. It was in a black envelope with the Baroque Works symbol. The girl picked up the letter and she pulled out the written letter, reading the words. Straw Hat, Lucy. If you are reading this, then that means you have somehow managed to survive the drowning. Good work, child. But now, there are more difficult things you must surpass. If you want to fight me, find me in the Grand Dunes of Alabasta. I will be waiting for you at sundown. Come alone or many innocent lives will come to an end. Don't worry about your crew. They are more than welcome to fight my members in Alubarna, the capital city. Your other friends happen to be there as well. See you soon, Straw Hat. Sir Crocodile, hero of Alabasta. Lucy gritted her teeth and she threw the letter into the water, watching it sink. She stomped over to the others and she told what the letter had said. The people weren't that surprised and they soon started thinking up a plan. Lucy already had one in mind. Guys, you need to head over to Alubarna. I'll head to the Grand Dunes. We'll meet up in Alubarna as soon as I beat the shit out of Crocodile, she said. The pirates nodded and Smoker pulled out a snail, a marine-based communication device called a transponder snail. I'll arrange escorts first to Alubarna, he said. The crew looked at him in slight bewilderment. You're going to help us? Asked Usopp. Smoker rolled his eyes in annoyance. Damn pirates, can't you see I need to arrest Crocodile as well? I am not working nor help you, he muttered. Yeah, we're just assisting you and you're just assisting us. Right, Smokey? Asked Anne, stinking out her tongue and winking playfully. Smoker muttered something under his breath as he used his snail. Anne smiled as she turned to her sister. Are you sure you can go off on your own on this, Luce? This is a warlord we're talking about. Beating the shit out of him is as easy as it sounds, said the freckled-faced girl. Lucy looked up at her sister with sheer confidence. I can beat him. I'm not a little kid anymore, Anne, she said. The older sister couldn't help but smile, ruffle her sister's hair. I can see that. Okay, make sure to show him what for. But how are you going to make it to the Grand Dunes? It's already close to sundown, she said. The group heard a patting of feet and they turned to see Draco running up, coming to Anne's feet and nudging his head apologetically at her side. Couldn't find the dance powder, huh? Well, that's fine. I need you to do another thing for me anyway, said the flame girl. Anne took Lucy's arm and she tugged her onto the purple lizard. Use Draco to get you to the Grand Dunes. He'll get you there in no time, she said. Lucy looked at her sister and she nodded confidently. She then removed her hat and she handed it to Zoro. Zoro, can you look after this for me? I don't want it to get shredded, she said. Zoro looked at the straw hat, then the girl who wore it with a nod. Lucy smiled and she looked at everyone else. Guys, we have to stop this war soon. Let's make sure we meet at Alubarna soon, she said. Everyone nodded and with a kick of her foot, Lucy rode off on Draco to the Grand Dunes, her fist just twitching to beat the crap out of the warlord. How futile. You're just as weak and pathetic as the desert-dry people of this country. Damn, you. Lucy felt an electrifying pain take over her body as Crocodile's hook sank into the flesh of her abdomen. She had got what she wanted. She found Crocodile and she fought him. But as you can clearly read, her attack had came in vain. Crocodile's hook had pierced all the way through the girl's lower stomach. The wound was bleeding gallons and Lucy's breathing was going shallow. Lucy's eyes rolled to the back of her head while Crocodile smirked, throwing the teen into a quicksand pit. Pitiful. You are a weakling. You and everyone else of this country is just pathetic. Hoping on dreams that will never come to be. You're a disgrace to piracy, said the warlord as he turned away while Lucy sank into the sand. Crocodile took one look back with a dark chuckle, before dissipating in the sand beneath his feet. Lucy struggled and winced as she tried to pull herself out of the sand. The granite had gotten into her wounds and they mixed with the pain she was already receiving from the torn wounds. As the last bit of sand came over her body, Lucy slowly awaited her death. She suddenly felt multiple hands grabbed her arms and legs and they pulled her out of the sand. Lucy gasped and she coughed up sand, her body landing in a heap. The pirate looked to her side and she stared at the woman before her. The woman was beautiful, with her olive-tanned skin, mid-length, ebony black hair, and mysterious blue eyes. Her clothes were white with a matching cowboy hat on her head. Who are you? Asked Lucy as she heaved in air into her lungs. The woman looked at her with a calm face. A Baroque Works member. Ms. All Sunday, said the woman. Lucy's eyes widened slightly as her breath went harder. Baroque Works, why did you save me? She asked weakly, her stomach turning slightly with the pain of her massive wound. Ms. All Sunday flipped her hair back slightly. Your will to live, that seems to strive in people who posses the will of D. She said. Lucy spat blood out of her mouth and her eyes looked up at the woman with curiously. What was the will of D? It sounded so faintly reassuring to her. Ms. All Sunday looked to the sky before she walked toward a giant crocodile with a saddle. I hope to see you soon enough, Ms. Monkey D. Lucy, she said as she rode away on her reptile. Lucy stared at the woman's running creature before she saw a bird fly over her and land near her. The bird turned into a man and he looked over Lucy carefully. His skin was pale and his features looked flacken-like. I will help you. Just relax yourself and I'll take care of everything else, he said. Lucy's eyes nearly went close as she felt her being picked up by the man. She felt herself now on a feathered body and she could soon see the light and dark colors of twilight come near her. With exhaustion and pain seeping into her, Lucy's eye closed and she fell into unconsciousness. Disclaimer: this story do not belong to me. The author is Queen of the Pirates by Mustar0013. Chapter 17. Let It Rain. A few rays of light tickled at Lucy's closed eyes as morning peeked into the room she was in. Said pirate's eyes fluttered open and she winced at the light that invaded her eyes. Her stomach was doing somersaults with a pain following after it and her muscles felt stiff to the bone. She coughed weakly when she felt that her throat was dry. It was like she swallowed cotton. She heard running footsteps and she could make out a person with her blurred vision. The person lifted her head with on hand and held something to her lips. Here, drink this. It will help you feel a lot better, said the voice of the person. Lucy blinked tiredly before allowing the drink past her lips. She enjoyed the cold feeling of the liquid going down her dry throat. When she finished it, her vision came clear and she looked at the face of the person who saved her. It was the man she had met after she had met Ms. All Sunday. Are you okay? Do you need any more? Asked the man, holding the cup he had in his hand. Lucy shook her head and her eyes took a quick scan of the room. It was actually a tent with a few medical items, a chest, and a few books. She also realized she was lying in a cot. Where am I? What happened? And, who are you? She asked, her voice slightly hoarse. The man slowly paced her head back on the cot and he walked over to table, mixing a liquid with a type of paste. My name is Pell. I am the second commander of the Alabasta Guards. We are in a tent base that I've made that is in the Grand Dunes. I found you wounded and dehydrated. You were practically at death's door, said Pell as he finished mixing the two ingredients and walked over to Lucy again. Open the last 3 buttons of your vest, please, he said. Lucy did as she was told and her eyes widened at all the bandages that was wrapped around her lower abdomen. Pell undid the bandages and Lucy hissed when Pell smeared the mixture he made onto her blackening wound. This paste should draw out any sand that has gotten in your injury. It will also cease the infection that has come over it, explained Pell as he wrapped a fresh roll of bandages, tying up the wound. Can you tell me what happened? Who attacked you? He asked. Lucy scratched the back of her head and she panicked slightly when she felt that her straw hat wasn't there. She then remembered. She hand left it was Zoro. It was all right. The captain looked at Pell. You said you were second commander of the Alabasta Guards, right? She asked. Pell nodded. Lucy took a breath before nodding to herself. Okay, I tell you, she said. She explained everything that had happened ever since she had met Vivi. She told him what adventures they had and all that they had been through. She had told him what she knew of Crocodile and Baroque works. She told him about her fight with Crocodile in the Grand Dunes and she had told him his plot. When she finished, Pell looked like he understood it all. So that's it. I always knew that man was a false hero, said the pale man. Lucy nodded and she then remembered something else. How long have I been knocked out? She asked. About 3 days. You looked like you were in so much pain, said Pell. Lucy's eyes widened and she jumped out of bed, yelping as pain shot to her wound. Pell caught her before she could fall. What are you doing? You'll just reopen your wound, exclaimed Pell. Lucy grinded her teeth and glared at Pell. I don't care. Everyone in Alubarna will die if the rebel army and the royal guards fight. No one will survive. Millions of innocent lives will be killed all because of Crocodile. I just have to get there right now. They need me, she yelled. Pell held her back. You're crazy if you think you can fight in this condition, child, yelled Pell. I don't want to fight. I want to protect, yelled Lucy. Pell froze when he heard the girl say that. He remembered the days when he would watch over Vivi and when she asked him why he trained. He told her he did it for the kingdom. That fighting and protecting were 2 different things. Lucy looked at Pell with seriousness swirling in her black eyes. Please, I just have to get to Alubarna real fast. My friends are waiting for me and they need me, she said. Pell looked back at the girl's eyes before nodding. Very well, I shall take you there. Wait for me outside, he said. Lucy nodded and she walked outside. A few winds were blowing tumbleweeds here to there and the sun was at its usual heat. Lucy shaded her eyes with her hand and she looked at the cloudless sky. It'll rain, Vivi, I promise, she thought. Pell walked out, all set and ready to go. He handed Lucy the little barrel that had fallen off her neck and Lucy looked around for the thing they were going to ride in. So, how are we supposed to get to Alubarna? She asked. Pell gave a knowing smile. I can take us there. I have eaten the bird fruit. The flaken model, he said as his appearance changed into a giant falcon with brown feathers. Wow, cool, exclaimed Lucy. Pell allowed the pirate on his back and he took off into the sky. I just have this to ask. What do you plan to do in order to beat Crocodile? Didn't he leave you for dead when you two fought? Asked Pell as he flew through the sky. He did, but I guess I just have to think of a new move in order to beat him, she said. Pell said nothing as continued to soar over the sandy landscape. Lucy looked at her bandaged wrapped wrist. The very one that had the X that she and the others had drawn on their arms. She placed her hand on her wrist and she looked ahead, a determined glint in her eyes. Defeat the rebels. Get past the guards. Commands and yells rang through the city of Alubarna as gun smoke and the clashes of metal went across the city. People were scrambling all over the place, trying their best to escape the war that was going on in the capital. The war had started a few hours ago and things were not looking good at all. Buildings were destroyed by bombs and a few bodies laid on the floor. A little boy with a baby in his arms ran through one part and he was unfortunate to get caught through a sword fight. Before he and the infant were scratched, he was protected by a man wielding 3 swords. You all right, kid? Asked Zoro to the child. The boy gulped and nodded, fright showing in his eyes. A few gunshots ran through the air and the boy huddled to Zoro's feet. The swordsman quickly picked up the kid and he ran past the several men that were fighting. Over here. Bring them over here. Zoro looked to see a couple of Marines calling him. They looked like they were escorting some people out of the capital. He hesitated before running over to the men and handing the small boy to the man. Hey, I need to get to Clock Tower. Do you know where that is? Asked the swordsman. He knew that asking for directions from a Marine was pathetic but he really needed them. Just head north. You'll get to the top of it if you do, said the man. Zoro nodded and he turned to leave when he heard the little boy call out something. Thanks, mister. You're really cool, he called. Zoro kept on running, but only with a knowing smile on his face. He then felt something in one of his hands and he looked at it. His fingers curled tightly around the brim of Lucy's hat and he ran in the direction he was told to go in. Hey guys, how did you get down there? Yelled Sanji from high above. Nami, Vivi, Usopp, and Chopper looked up to see their blonde friend on the 2nd floor of the clock tower. Each one of them were covered in scratches, due to the fact that they had all fought the members of Baroque Works. Sanji, what are you doing up there? exclaimed Usopp. You guys looking for the bomb too, right? I found out that it's around here, yelled Sanji back. What he said was true. Crocodile had planted a bomb somewhere in the city and the Straw Hat Gang had found out that it was close to the clock tower. That's great. Just head to the top. It should be up there, yelled Usopp back. Sanji, guys, what are you doing there? This time, everyone looked up to see Zoro on the 5th floor of the clock tower. Sanji was the first to yell. Zoro, what the hell are you doing there? It was the Marines. They kept saying go north. Go north. So I just went up. North and up are not the same thing, stupid. While those two were having their little fight, the team on the ground soon heard the thundering of footsteps. They turned to see two groups of rebels and guards running toward each other. Both were intent on killing. They're gonna ram us, yelled Chopper as the two groups closed in on them. Fire gun, white blow. A spiral of fire and smoke met as the two attacks separated the two groups from the four pirates. Said people looked to see Ann and Smoker stand in front of them, flames and smoke whipping out of their bodies. You guys alright? Asked Ann when the fire and smoke died down. We're fine. Has Lucy come back yet? Asked Vivi. Ann shook her head with a worried look in her eyes. No, and I'm getting really worried because Draco came here by himself this morning without her. I think something might have happened, said the flame girl as a frown that matched her eyes came onto her lips. A gloved hand came to her shoulder and Ann looked up to see calm gray eyes. There's nothing to worry about, Portgas. That sister of yours is stronger than she looks, said Smoker. Ann looked at Smoker's hand before smiling at Smoker with a nod. She then turned back to the others. So you guys were yelling something about a bomb, right? She asked. Yeah, Crocodile planted it somewhere around the clock tower and we're trying to find it, said Nami. Ann placed her finger on her chin and she looked toward Smoker. What do you think we should do, Smoker? She asked. The gray white-haired man ran fingers through his hair and he bit at the two cigars in his mouth. This kind of business was seriously nerve-wracking. Captain Smoker, there are more rebels and soldiers heading this way, called Tashigi as she ran over. Zoro was glad as heck that he was on the 5th floor. Smoker looked at his protege and he then thought of something. Tashigi, Portgas, you two follow me. We have to buy these pirates some time in order to stop the bomb. Understand? Asked the Marine. Everyone nodded and Ann and Tashigi followed Smoker. As the trio ran, the three of them attacked at the soldiers that tried to stop them. Ann gave impressive fire attacks while Smoker threw his smoke abilities and Tashigi used her sword skills. They made it to an area that was surrounded with smoke. I'll take this way. You two stick together, yelled Smoker as he ducked into the smoke. Ann and Tashigi ran into the other direction just as a few rebel soldiers and guards came by. As they fought with them, Ann spotted one of the soldiers that was coming behind Tashigi. Look out, yelled the pyro girl as she ran and knocked the swordswoman out of the fire range. A gunshot went through the air and Ann clenched her teeth as a bullet grazed her arm. Portgas, are you alright? Asked Tashigi as she ran over to the fallen 20-year-old. Ann pressed her hand to her wound and she gave a hiss. I'm fine. It's just a scratch. Are you okay, Tashigi? Asked the devil fruit girl to the Marine. It's not my well-being you should be concerned about, said Tashigi as she looked at Ann's bleeding arm. Ann shook her head and she bared her teeth slightly at Tashigi. Nah, it's fine because it's me. If it were you, Smoker would never forgive me, muttered Ann as small sparks of fire came around her wound, sealing the injury with the heat. Tashigi gave a confused look, not understanding what the pirate was saying. Ann noticed the confusion and she continued. You're Smoker's protege. You mean a lot to him and he told us to stick together. That means we have to watch each other's back. Smoker would hate me if I let something bad happen to you. And, Ann gave a wince as her fire got a bit big and she died it down a bit before continuing. And, I couldn't live with myself if Smokey hated me, she mumbled. Tashigi felt her heart tug when she saw Ann's look of honesty. It looked like the firepower girl really cared about Smoker a lot. Hey, the Marine's right, girl. It's both your lives you should be worried about. The two turned to see a rebel soldier point a rifle at them. They spot the Baroque works mark on his arm and before they could move, his and several others' rifles shot at them. The two women gasped and closed their eyes. They heard the sounds of punctured flesh and Tashigi was the first to open her eyes with a loud shriek. Captain Smoker. No, she screamed. Ann opened her eyes too and she gasped at the sight. Several blood holes were through Smoker's pale chest and they were all bleeding rapidly. Smoker laid sprawled on the floor, his body twitching, his breathing heavy, and his clothes soaked in his own pool of blood. Ann's eyes widened and she bolted toward the wounded Marine. Smokey. Smoker. What did you just do? Yelled Ann as she shook the man's body when she reached him. Smoker turned to his back and he spotted something he never thought. Tears were moistening in the pyromaniac's brown eyes and her face showed concern and worry. Whatever pain Smoker felt on his chest wasn't compared to the pain he was seeing on Ann's face. He swallowed the blood that tried to pass his throat and his hand pressed to Ann's cheek, his thumb swiping under Ann's eye. You're crying, Portgas, he muttered, his pale thumb catching the tear that was about to fall. Ann blinked. She couldn't believe that the Marine's voice could go this soft. A warm tear escaped her eye and dropped to the ground. So what? What about you? Why did you do that? She asked, her voice wavering with worry. Smoker coughed as his throat caught a bit of blood. He could feel his entire world go black as the pain took over his mind. My body just did what my mind told it. I guess you could say, I'm paying back a life, chalked Smoker as his eyes looked deeply into Anne's before they fell shut, his hand falling to his side. Anne's head hung low and she said nothing. P. Portgas? Asked Tashigi, a little nervous of Anne's silence. The fire girl slowly turned to the female Marine, tears running out of her eyes and staining her freckled cheeks. Tashigi had never seen a pirate look so broken and lost. Why? They shouldn't be fighting, this all just a misunderstanding. People are getting hurt because of this, it's not fair, it's just not fair, whispered Anne as her tears continued to fall. Tashigi took a gulp before she walked over to Anne and helped her to her feet. I know it's not fair. But people don't know that yet. We and a lot of people are trying to show that. And Captain Smoker just showed something like that. He showed that even though his whole life, he hated pirates for everything they were, he risked his life for one. Because he knew that both are not different. No matter what mark they bear and what place they work for, said Tashigi. Anne blinked out a few tears and she looked at Smoker. Her heart filled with grief because of his action, but she knew that Tashigi was right. Smoker had risked his life for her to prove this whole mishap was wrong. And right now, Anne had to return the favor. The back-haired girl turned back to Tashigi with a firm nod. Okay, I'll go see if the guys need some help. Take care of Smoker, alright? She asked. Tashigi nodded, and with that, Anne turned into a ball of fire and flew out of the area. Mr. Pell, are we there yet? Asked Lucy as Pell soared in the air. The two had been flying for an hour now and Lucy could already see gun smoke come from a giant city. Pell nodded in his falcon form. Yes, hold on, yelled the Birdman as he flew closer to the city and flew around. Lucy frowned sadly as she spotted all the fighting that was going on. She remembered that Vivi had wanted nothing like this to happen and now this was happening. It was not right. Her eyes swiped over the area and they widened when she spotted the clock tower opening and a giant bomb behind it. Mr. Pell, there's a bomb that looks like it's going to blow. What do we do? Asked Lucy. Pell spotted the bomb as well and he frowned at it. He knew what he had to do. It would cost him his life, but it was worth it. To protect the city was his duty. Ms. Lucy, I believe it is time we part our ways. Take care of Princess Vivi for me, said the Flacken Man as he swooped his body, make Lucy fall off him. Lucy's eyes shot wide when she saw the Birdman take the bomb and fly high into the sky. Mr. Pell, no, she cried as she fell to the earth. But Pell could not hear her. As he soared high into the sky with the bomb giving its last ticks, he smiled softly. Farewell, my princess. Then, the bomb burst into the air. Everyone head whipped in the direction of the explosion. Vivi could spot the brown feathers that came from the might winds of fire and shelling and her eyes widened. She choked on her breath and tears went into her eyes. Pell, no, she cried as she broke down to the floor, her tears bursting from her cheeks. Lucy heard Vivi's yell as she fell and her own tears blurred her vision. She could tell that Vivi was really hurt inside and she blamed herself for the whole event. As she soon reached the earth, she felt fingers catch her arms and legs and lower her to the ground. Lucy stared up wide-eyed at her savior. Ms. All Sunday, you saved me again, she exclaimed, not believing that the woman of Baroque works had saved her life again. The mysterious woman looked at the girl with a cool aura. Indeed, you're quite observant, Ms. Monkey D. Lucy, she said. Lucy stood up and she held her fist in a fighting position. I have to know, why did you save me this time? I could land it on a building or something, she said. True, but I can see that you are in a need of help, correct? Asked Ms. All Sunday. Lucy slowly nodded. Then I can give you some. I can tell you where Crocodile is, said the older woman. Lucy raised an eyebrow skeptically. How do I know you're not tricking me? What if you're setting me up? Asked the raven-haired girl warily. Ms. All Sunday placed her hands on her pockets and she turned. I never said I was under Crocodile's hand. I simply need him, she said. Need him? Asked Lucy with curiosity. Ms. All Sunday began to walk away and Lucy raised her hand. Oi, wait, Crocodile is in an underground room that is right below us. If you use those rubber abilities of yours, you just might get to him in time. Until we meet again, Ms. Monkey D. Lucy, said the ebony-haired woman as she walked away into the gun smoke. Lucy blinked before she jumped to the air and gave a kick to the ground. It gave a crackling sound and it suddenly fell through. Lucy gave a determined smile as she fell through the ground. You think you can defeat me, girl? You're dreaming. Lucy breathed heavily as she glared at Crocodile. True to the Baroque works female's word, Crocodile was in an underground room. He had also captured King Cobra and the so-called hero, and Lucy had gotten in an all-out battle and the two were close to exhaustion. Both of them had severe wounds and the room around them was about to fall soon. Lucy wiped her bloody lip. And that's what I'm trying to make a reality. A dream, yelled Lucy as he body blew in with air like a balloon. She then threw back her fist and Crocodile's eyes widened. This is for Vivi. Gum Gum Storm, yelled the Gum Gum girl as her fist shot out toward the false hero with more power and quicker speed than her Gum Gum Gatling. Crocodile yelled as he crashed toward the wall by the mighty attack and he slid to the ground to a knocked-out heap. Sand whipped out of his body and flew to the cracks above. Lucy breathing went labored as she fell back to the floor. As her eyes closed tiredly, one thought went through her mind. Please, let it rain. And suddenly, her plea came true. Tell me babe, how many do I shed my tears? Every heart is not a gentle yet. Shall I do? I can never say my loneliness. Every heart doesn't know so what to say oh what to do. As the sands whipped through the cracks and into the sky, there was a little rumble. That rumble soon turned into a roar of thunder and the sky grew thick with clouds. Something fell from the heavy clouds and pelted the ground with light lumps. Everyone heard the thumps and they looked up, not at all believing what was coming before their eyes. Was afraid of darkness cause I felt that I was left alone. So I prayed for help to distant million stars. Water droplets fell from the desert sky and everyone looked in shock. The Straw Hat crew, counting Anne who had recently found them, all looked at each other before cheering and jumping into the air. Lucy beat Crocodile. Round and round, the planets revolve round the sun. And we always seek after love and peace, forevermore. Growing, whoa, baby, we can work it out. Look up at the sky, every heart is shining all today. Tashigi and several other Marines looked up at the raining sky as the water splashed on their faces. Tashigi looked down to see Smoker waking up. A thick gauze was wrapped around his wounds and he barely survived his wounds. The gray-haired Marine reached his hand slowly up and rain pelted his gloved hand. Captain Smoker, it's raining. Can you believe it? Asked Tashigi in awe. Smoker blinked and he closed his eyes. Right now, anything is bound to happen. Show me now, what kind of smile do I come across? Every heart can take a step towards the dreams. All of us, what to take a lasting happiness. Whenever you feel sad, I wanna hold you and give you a sound sleep. King Cobra walked over to Lucy and he smiled at her gratefully. Thank you, for all you have done, he said. Lucy's eyes opened and she gave her signature grin of D. The king picked her up piggyback style and he helped her out of the underground room. As soon as they got out, the king allowed the cold rain to freshen his drying, tan skin. Lucy, thank God you're okay. The king turned to see the Straw Hat group running over to them. He could recognize Vivi among them. Vivi saw him as well. Daddy, you're okay, too. She cried as she ran faster to her father. The man placed Lucy down and he hugged his daughter, happy to see she was alright. Anne ran over to her little sister and she checked her. The kid's roughed up a bit but she fine. Thank God, said the girl to herself. She brushed a few hairs from her sister's forehead and gave a light smile. She picked up Lucy bridal style and she placed her on Draco's back and turned to the others with her smile still on. Thank you, all of you. You must have helped as well, said King Cobra. Every just gave returning grins and smiles. The king had his arm around his daughter's waist and he waved his hand. Please come with me, you all need your rest, he said. Everyone nodded and Anne turned to Zoro. I need to go somewhere. I'll meet you guys sometime later, she said. Zoro looked at Lucy before he nodded. Anne smiled and she soon dashed off. The green-haired man looked at his captain before giving a rare smile and placing the teen's straw hat on her head. The sleeping girl snuggled to Draco's red mane as the lizard and man followed the others. Someday every heart's gonna free and easy. We have peace of mind. Someday all the people find the way to love. Hina hasn't seen Smoker this banged up since training days. How is Smoker? Smoker looked over his shoulder to see an old friend of his. It was a female Marine with long, wavy pink hair and ruby red lips. She looked very disappointed, and Smoker wishes Hina would stop talking in third person because Smoker finds it annoying, mocked Smoker as he breathed in cigars and stood up from the ground. He and a few other Marines were just taking a quick look of the ruins of the city when Hina came. Hina finds that rude, and just when Hina wanted to see her old friend, scolded Hina. Smoker rolled his eyes and he made sure the gauze tied around his chest was well and tight. What happened to Smoker? How did he get hurt? Asked Hina, looking at the Marine skeptically. Smoker, for one of the rarest moments of his life, zipped up his jacket. Just a small injury. Nothing of your concern, he said. If he played it cool enough, maybe his old friend wouldn't bring up the subject again. Smokey, you're okay. Smoker nearly lost all the air in his lungs, his arms wrapped around his neck and legs wrapped around his waist from behind. Anne nuzzled her head to the Marine's neck with a happy smile on her face. Her heart was bursting with sheer joy. Smoker, however, was annoyed beyond hell. Get the hell off me, Portgas, yelled the Smoke Power Man as he tried to break out of the girl's vice grip with no avail. Who is this, Smoker? Hina is curious, said Hina with a raise of her eyebrow. Anne looked at the woman and she glared at her slightly with a hint of jealousy in her eyes. Who was she, and how did she know Smoker? Said Marine got the pyro girl off him and he cleared his throat. Just a complete nuisance, he muttered. Anne looked at Smoker and she gave a Lucy-like pout. Nuisance. Smokey's mean. I just wanted to see if you were okay after all those bullets, said the girl as she crossed her arms childishly. Bullets? Asked Hina with a arched brow. It's nothing. Forget it, yelled Smoker, growing annoyed. He then turned to Anne. See, I'm alright. Now do me a favor and leave before I make you, yelled the man. Anne blinked before giving a smirk. Okay, I'm just glad to see that you're back to your regular self. Alright, I'll leave. Bye, Smokey. I'll miss you, cooed Anne as she gave the Marine a quick peck on the cheek before sprinting away. Smoker's face flared up and he noticed that Anne had dropped a slip of paper on the floor. Oi, Portgas, you dropped this, yelled Smoker, picking up the slip and waving it in the air. Anne looked back and her grin flattened slightly before it came back. Keep it for me, will ya? She called as she ran away and disappeared. Smoker blinked before looking at the slip. It was a picture of Anne and she was giving a cute grin. Next to her was someone else. It was a man with reddish-brownish hair and a black goatee. His eyes were dark brown and he wore a light blue suit with a yellow kerchief. What surprised Smoker was that the man had one of his arms wrapped around Anne's waist and they both looked happy. Smoker turned the picture over and he spotted some words. Anne and Thatch. Two souls that were meant to meet. But not meant to last. Who is this Thatch? Thought the cigar man with curiosity. He was dragged out of his thoughts when someone was patting his back really hard. Hina's proud of Smoker. He's final gotten a good lady, praised Hina. Several veins popped on Smoker's face as said face turned crimson. And Smoker wants Hina to shut the hell up before Smoker get too pissed off. Goes and goes, the time goes on, we are not alone. We live on together and we will find some precious things. Sometime we will smile, sometime we will cry somehow. Don't forget believing yourself, tomorrows never die. Lucy gave a yawn as she woke up on a nice and comfy bed. She sat up and looked around, seeing she was in a big room that looked simple yet very nice and seeing that she was in light blue pajamas. She looked to her side and she spotted a huge plate of fruit laid out for her. A small sign on it simply read, "Eat up." Wasting no time, the girl gobbled up all the food in a mere 5 seconds. Still feeling that her stomach was empty, the girl got off from the comfy bed and she walked out of the room. She walked her way into a large hallway and she looked around. How did I get here? She whispered to herself. Another door soon opened and Zoro walked out of it. He wore a black silk robe with his haramaki tied around his waist. The swordsman spotted his captain. Hey, so you're finally awake? He asked as he walked over to Lucy. Said girl cocked her head in confusion. Finally. How long have I been knocked out? Asked Lucy as she and her first mate walked down a staircase. About 3 days now. The king told us that you got in a pretty rough fight with Crocodile, said Zoro when the two made it down the stairs. Lucy's eyes widened to dinner plates. 3 days. Man, I missed about 15 meals already, yelled the captain while Zoro's sweat dropped. Calm down, captain. It's lunchtime now and everyone must be in the dining room right now. Come on, said Zoro as he led the panicking girl over to the giant dining room. True to his word, everyone was eating glorious amounts of food. They all looked over as the two sat down by the table. Hiya, baby sis. Glad to see you're awake, said Anne as she patted Lucy's back. Lucy smiled as she piled food onto her plate and she blinked at the two people sitting next to her sister. Smokey, Ms. All Sunday, what are you doing here? Asked Lucy in astonishment. A Marine and a member of Baroque Works were sitting right with her crew. What in the name of fudge was going on? Relax, Lucy, they won't hurt us, said Vivi calmly. Yes, Captain Smoker has agreed not to capture you, your sister, or your crew today. I've invited them here after the valiant work they have done during the war. And Ms. All Sunday was a great help near the end of the battle as well when she told us all the information she had gathered from Crocodile. It turns out she was on our side this whole time, said King Cobra. Lucy looked skeptically at the two-mentioned person before shrugging and eating up the food she had on her plate. Alright, I'm okay with Smokey, but I'm gonna be a little cautious around you, Ms. All Sunday. Lucy's crew was thinking that Lucy was acting a bit rude but Ms. All Sunday waved her hand. I understand. Personally, I don't blame you for being cautious. Why don't we get to know each other slowly? I have already heard of all your names but I have yet to tell mine. I am Robin. Nico Robin, said Robin, giving a light smile. Everyone nodded in acknowledgement and they continued to have the breakfast they had. A few conversations went here and there. King Cobra explained that his kingdom would go to be anew soon enough, and had said that she had Draco placed in the Alabasta animal guards to protect the kingdom, and Vivi began an important one. So, what will you all be planning to do after you leave Alabasta? She asked. Nami wiped her lips with a napkin. We don't know exactly, but we have plenty time to think about that. Is okay if we relax around here for a while? Asked the redhead. The king smiled and nodded. Of course it's all right. You've all worked so well. Why don't you go and take a dip in the royal baths? We usually open them around the rain seasons but I can make an exception, he said. A few people, mostly the men, declined but the king would have none of it. It was bath time. Wah, this feels nice, mused Lucy. Anne giggled as she ran shampoo through her sister's short hair. The D sisters, Nami, Vivi, and Robin were sitting in the women's royal baths and they were all relaxing with their own affairs. Nami, Vivi, and Robin were having a light conversation and the D sisters were giving each other a good bath. "Hey, Anne, what are you gonna do when you have to leave?" asked Lucy curiously. Anne rubbed her sister's face with a wet cloth and she thought for a while. "I guess I can go check out for Blackbeard. Now that the king gave me enough rain powder to last me a whole year, I can leave soon," said the freckled-faced girl. Lucy laid back slightly and she looked over her shoulder to her sister. "I'll miss you a lot," she said with a little sadness in her voice. Anne gave a smile and she smoothed the younger girl's wet hair. "I know, and I'll miss you a lot, too," she said. Lucy smiled back. She really would miss Anne. It had been 3 years since they had last seen each other and now they were going to leave each other again. She sure hoped that the two of them would meet again soon. A small sad pang hit Lucy's stomach when she remembered that she would have to leave Vivi. She knew that the princess had to look over her country from now on. "You guys, you can't just peep on us." Lucy broke out of her thoughts when she saw that Sanji, Usopp, Chopper, and the king peeking at them from over the wall. Nami gave them a little of her, happiness punch, and the men were knocked out with major nosebleeds. "Oi, what's going on?" we heard a scream, called Zoro as he opened the door to the bathhouse with Smoker behind him. Both men's faces turned scarlet when they spotted the D sisters only clothed in towels wrapped around their bodies. Both men walked out of the room quickly as their noses began to bleed. Lucy blinked in confusion while Anne nearly laughed her ass off. "I can't believe we're saying goodbye already." "Take good care, Lucy," said Anne as she gave her sister a bear hug. It was already an hour after the bath incident and the Fire Fist and the Straw Hat crew were by the Going Merry to say goodbye. The group had left the palace in the cover of night and they were about to leave at dawn. Lucy hugged back and the two sisters let go. Anne hopped on her schooner and she waved to her sister. Everyone else joined in at the waving. "Bye. I'll miss you, Anne," called Lucy as her sister sailed away. "I'll miss you, too. All of you. Take care of my sis for me. Goodbye," yelled the Pyro Girl as her boat sailed away into the sea. The Straw Hat Gang gave their last waves before they got on their ship and they soon stared to sail away. Just as they were about to leave, they could hear Vivi call them. Lucy wanted to call back and say goodbye but Nami wouldn't let her. She aimed that marine boats would spot and catch them doing a noble thing. Lucy pulled off the bandages that were around her wrist and she held it up, showing her X mark. Everyone got her point and they followed as well. Vivi spotted the marks and tears came to her eyes. She undid her own bandages and she held her arm to the air. Koza, a friend of Vivi and the leader of the rebel army, stood next to her and he didn't get it. "Do those marks mean something?" he asked. Vivi looked at him and smiled softly. "Yes, they mean everything." Chapter 18, Inconsiderable Love. Zoro's eye twitched in annoyance at the scene before him. He had seen a lot of strange things in his life. Whales the size of a mountain. A crew of swashbuckling clowns with a captain to match. He even saw Lucy in a maid's outfit. But his down in the dumps lying on their backs and moaning in sadness had beaten all of them. He didn't get it. What was there to be sad about? They saved Alabasta, they managed to escape the Marines, and they were traveling on safe waters. Why the hell were they all sad in the face? "Hey, what's with all the faces?" he asked, tilting his head with a raised brow. Together, the rest of the crew chorused, "We miss her." Zoro felt the muscle above his eye twitch. So that was the reason. How pathetic. "Quit your whining. If you wanted Vivi to come with us, then you shouldn't have let her stay," he said in an annoyed tone. The remaining Straw Hats sat up and glared at the swordsman. All of them wanted to give him a piece of their mind. "You tyrant, blockhead, shitty swordsman, 3-sword style. 3-sword style is not an insult, Lucy. 4-sword style then." Everyone faced palmed at their captain's change of words. Just then, the door to the lower deck had opened. An all too familiar person stepped onto the deck with a change of clothes and without a cowboy hat. Well, they seem to be back to their spirits, Yeah, they're really. Wait a minute. What the hell are you doing here? Yelled Zoro as he pulled out 2 of his swords. Everyone else jumped to their feet as they soon saw that the person was Nico Robin. The blue-eyed woman held her hands up with a calm smile. "Easy there. You don't want to get into a fight you know you can't win," she said in her deep and soothing voice. Everyone still held stance poses and they were shocked beyond their minds. Just how the heck did she get on the boat? The strange woman turned her eyes to Lucy. "Well, Monkey D. Lucy, it's certainly a pleasure seeing you again," she said. Lucy eased her stance and she took a step to the mysterious person. "What are you doing here? Why did you follow us?" she asked. Robin reached into her pocket and she pulled out a letter. "Princess Vivi had told me to get you this letter. She said it was important that you read it," she said as she walked over to Lucy and held out the envelope. Lucy looked at the letter, then at Robin's trance-like blue eyes. She could see the honesty in them and she took the letter from the woman, opening the envelope and pulling out the letter of cursive. She scrunched her eyes at the words before she waved the paper in the air. "Wah, this is too hard to read. Nami, you read it," complained the captain. With an irritable sigh, the redhead plucked the letter from the girl's hand and she read it aloud. Dear Lucy and Straw Hat Crew, I hope you have received this letter as soon as you could. I have so much to tell you that my hand is simply trembling with excitement as I write you this letter. What I first like to tell you is that everything in Alabasta is going fantastic. Water has been coming back and peace between the formal rebels and citizens has been restored. My father and everyone else is pleased. We can't thank you enough. Everyone gave a light smile and Nami continued. I also have some more good news to say. This first piece should excite Lucy. A few days after you guys left, guess who came over the sand dunes? Pell. He's alive. The bomb didn't kill him. Yahoo! Mr. Pell's alive. Mr. Pell's alive, cheered Lucy in a sing-song voice as she spun cartwheels on the deck with sheer joy. Everyone laughed at the captain's childlike behavior before reading on. I am so happy myself. I was so glad to see him that I am still crying tears of joy. Oh yes, and I must tell you this other piece of news. I haven't introduced you to him yet, but I would like to tell you that I am engaged to my childhood friend, Koza. We will be married in 5 years. Vivi is getting married. Everyone, counting out Robin, yelled in surprise. Well, this was new. Everyone had their own forms of shock. Lucy, Chopper, and Usopp were light small firecrackers in the sky, courtesy of the sniper. Sanji was crying tears of joy and sadness. Nami was gaping at the letter while Zoro held a slightly bewildered look. Nami was the first to recover and she read the last of the letter. I'm glad that I had the chance to tell you all these things. I miss you all dearly and I hope that we will all meet again soon. Your friend and crewmate, Princess Nefertari Vivi. Ah, now I miss Vivi even more, whined Lucy, sulking a bit. She then remembered something and she saw that Robin was still on the ship. Oh yeah, well, is there anything else you need to tell us? Asked the black-haired girl. The ebony-hired woman nodded and her eyes held a playful glint. Yes, I would like to join your crew. Gray eyes averted from left to right, just waiting for the enemy to strike. Sudden bullets rang through the air and the owner of the eyes turned into a mist of smoke, making the bullets fly through the person of smoke. The people who shot the bullets ducked to the ground as the flying death pellets flew over their heads. Slow clapping was heard and the smoke turned back into a person, said person glaring at the clapping person. Good work, Smoker. You dodged those bullets skillfully. Impressed. Hina is impressed, said Hina as she congratulated her old friend. Smoker glared at the pink-haired woman as he cracked his neck and walked over to a table, sitting on the chair that had his jacket. What are you doing here, Hina? And when did you get on my ship? Asked the Logia user as he relit his 2 cigars. Hina sat in the chair across Smoker and she called for 2 cups of coffee. What? Can't Hina come and visit? Smoker is a terrible host. Hina is sad, said the woman as she received 2 cups of coffee and handed one to the gray-haired man. Smoker gave an annoyed grunt as he drank up his caffeinated drink. So how is Smoker's wounds? Did they hurt that bad? Asked Hina, noticing the disappearing scars on her friend's abdomen. Smoker placed his cup down and he closed his eyes. They are fine, but they're still healing. Apparently, Crocodile got smart and he assigned assassins into the rebels and royal guards. He also gave them guns that shot sea stone bullets. The sadistic bastard, muttered the Marine. Hina looked to the sky. Sea stone bullets, Hina must keep that in mind. They could be very useful, she said. Smoker opened and rolled his eyes. You really are psychotic, aren't you? He asked. Why yes, Hina is, said the Pinkett. Smoker gave a sweat drop and he stood up and held his hands over his head, giving a good long stretch. Woohoo, looking good, Smokey. Smoker froze and his eye twitched. He knew that annoyingly teasing voice anywhere. He turned his vision to the pyrokinetic woman that was sitting by the bow of his ship. She had her signature smirk on her face and her long hair flew with the breeze. Smoker took a spilt second to admire those gorgeous, flowing tendrils before he glared sharply at the owner of the hair. Why the hell are you on my ship? He yelled, nearly biting of the ends of his cigars. Anne hopped onto the deck and she reached into her bag, pulling out 2 rolls of parchment. I'm just running some errands, Smokey. I would have made my presences notified sooner but, I was just enjoying the view, she said, her eyes brimming with playfulness as she stared at Smoker's bare upper body. She couldn't help but admire his pale and chiseled chest and those incredibly strong biceps. Shivers went down her spine when she wondered how it would feel to have her curvy figure pressed against those well-defined muscles. She nearly laughed when she saw Smoker's face flush red with embarrassment. This was beyond weird. A pirate was complimenting his body. And what was with that look on that woman's face? Even though he felt slightly mortified, he couldn't help but feel a bit of pride when the woman before him had a faint blush on her cheeks. He then scowled at himself and he reached for his jacket, pulling it on. Alright, Portgas, now that you made your presences, now what the hell do you want? He growled, sensing the Marine's pissed-off mood, and tossed the rolled-up parchments to the man. Just thought you would want to know who's the new member of the bounty list. I just found out this morning, she said when the Marine caught the papers. Smoker unrolled the both of them and he looked at the new poster. Wanted. Dead or alive. Roronoa Zoro. $B. 60 million. Huh, so the former bounty hunter has a bounty on him. How ironic. Though smoker as he unrolled the other bounty poster. Wanted. Dead or alive. Monkey D. Lucy. $B. 100 million. Smoker's eyes widen at the impressive new bounty that Straw Hat had received. Anne was smiling proudly, feeling happy for her little sister. Isn't it great? My sister had 100 million barris on her head. I feel so proud, she said, reaching behind her back and suddenly giving it a rough scratch. She then remembered something. Oh yeah, and congrats, by the way. Apparently the big guys from that old HQ of yours found out about Crocodile. You've been promoted to Commodore, she said. Smoker's eyes widened in surprise. They then narrowed. It was your dim-witted sister who beat that oaf, not me. I don't like getting false praise, muttered the promoted captain as he rolled up the 2 bounty posters. Anne took a few steps close to Smoker with her hands behind her head. True, Luce is the one who deserves the praise. But think of it, Smokey. A pirate, beating one of the warlords. Who had been deceiving the government for a long time. That would make them look really lame, So what would they do? Give the praise to the nearest, high-ranked marine around. Which in this case is you, said the flame girl. Smoker glared at the ground, balling his fist angrily. This was not right, and he knew it. He didn't want this if he didn't deserve it. Even though it was marine business, it was still wrong. Anne noticed his anger and she walked a bit closer to the man. Look, I know it must feel like a dent in your pride, but look at the bright side, said Anne, taking one more step and leaning to Smoker's ear. Commodore Smoker makes you sound very sexy, she purred in a seductive tone. Smoker's entire body flushed red and he glared at the pirate, who winked and took a jump back. Okay, so I guess that isn't the bright side, I get it. And I guess I should go no, Well, I guess Anne took a pause before she gave a cough. That light cough turned raspy and it went into a harsh fit. When Anne finally stopped, she was suddenly shivering and sweating. What's wrong with her? Asked Hina, walking over and having a bit of concern on her facial features. Smoker also noticed that Anne didn't look so well and he took a few steps toward the she-pirate. Portgas, are you feeling well? He asked wearily. Anne stood up shakily and she tilted her head to hide her face. I'm fine. Just feeling a bit funny, she rasped as her breathing went shallow and her body began flushing red. Okay, now Smoker was getting concerned. It was very obvious that Anne was not alright. She looked as sick as a water-deprived dog. Is young lady really fine? Or is she just saying that so that no one will worry? Hina wants to know, said Hina, her voice showing concern as she walked to Anne and placed a hand on the jet black-haired girl's shoulder. Anne pushed Hina's hand off her. I'm fine, really. I just need to, moaned Anne as she suddenly collapsed. Portgas, yelled Smoker as he ran forward and caught the fainted girl. He had no idea what made him do that. It was a sudden lurch in his heart that made him feel a strange warmth he had never experienced. He saw Anne's breathing go labored and he saw that her entire body was fire red, no pun intended. Anne's eyes were closed and she was shivering in the Commodore's arms. Smoker clenched his teeth and he turned to Hina. Get the ship's doctor to my room. Also get Tashigi, she could help out, too, he said. Without a moment's hesitation, Hina ran to find the doctor. Smoker picked up Anne bridal style and he speed walked his way to his room. He felt a nudge at his chest and he looked down to see Anne's eyes halfway opened. Her brown depths were cloudy and confused. Smokey, I feel so cold, but it's hot, T2, chucked the freckled girl as her eyes closed again and her body went limp. Damn it, stay with me, Portgas. Don't go to sleep, snapped Smoker angrily. Panic prickled into his mind and he ran his way straight to his room, kicking the door open and placing the pirate on his bed. The pirate went into fetal position and she curled into a tight ball. Anne's shivering went faster and she sweating buckets, her cheeks turning more red and moans of pain escaped her sealed lips. She let out a shudder breath that made Smoker work his way faster through his room. He had to keep the girl's fever down or else it would grow worse. He ran into his private bathroom and he damped a towel with cold water. He ran back into the room and he pulled Anne out of her positing, making her lie on her back and placing the towel on her forehead. Anne's eyes came open again and she reached her hands out to Smoker. Warm, I feel so cold, she whispered, her body giving more heavy shivers. Feeling the most tiniest pity he had in his heart, Smoker pulled off his jacket and he placed it on, tucking it around her and keeping her shivering body still. Anne gave another moan and she thrashed her head a bit. Smoker ran his fingers through his hair. Just where the hell was his comrades and doctor? Just then, his prayers were answered and the 3 people came in. Alright, let's see what the damage is, said the doctor as he walked over to Anne. He did a quick check-up on her, checking her heart rate and temperature and taking a small blood test. After a while, the doctor nodded to himself and nodded to himself. Okay, it seems to me that this young lady has coccidioidomycosis, he said. What is that exactly? Asked Tashigi. Coccidioidomycosis is otherwise known as valley fever. It's a fungal infection that occurs when a person breathes in infectious spores. The spores infect at the lungs and causes valley fever. Symptoms include cough, high fever, severe sweating, headaches, and many more. This young lady here has all these symptoms. Fortunately, she only has a mild case, said the doctor as he stood up and cleaned his glasses. Smoker felt relief wash through his body. He had no idea why he was glad that the girl was okay, but he decided not think about that for now. How did she get it? Asked Hina. The doctor cleared his throat. Well, since it's obvious that she's been in Alabasta, she might have gotten it when a heavy sandstorm came. She couldn't have known about it since symptoms don't show until after a week or so when the person has been infected. She will get better in a day or so. It's amazing that she will heal so quickly. Must have eaten a devil fruit, the doctor assumed. He walked to the door. The best thing she could do is to drink a lot of fluids and get plenty of rest. The infection will wear off on its own. Good day, said the doctor as he walked out of the room. Well, that is good. Hina is glad that girl will be fine. She is Smoker's lady, after all, said Hina. Smoker glared daggers at his old friend with a blush on his cheeks. She is not my lady, Hina, he yelled, blistered Smoker steaming out of his ears. Shish, I apologize, Commodore Smoker, but Anne needs her rest. We can't just go waking her up, whispered Tashigi. Too late, I'm already up. The three turned to see Anne propped on her elbows, not looking as weak as she did before. Lie down, Portgas, you're still flustered, said Smoker, feeling a bit of protectiveness swell in his heart. Anne shook her head and she pulled Smoker's jacket closer to her body. Chill, Smokey. The doc said I'd be good in a day. Besides, I know that in the next 2 minutes, I'm gonna be bored as hell, said the brown-eyed girl. Smoker growled in annoyance and was about to call her an annoying brat when Hina cut him off. Hina understands. Would this girl like to hear story from Hina? Asked the female marine. What kind of story? Asked Anne with an arched brow. Hina's eyes held mysteriousness with playfulness. When Smoker first became a marine, she said. Said marine froze and Anne's face split in a grin. Hell yes, she said. Hell no, yelled Smoker, growing angry. One of Hina's arms stretched and chained Smoker's arms to his sides. Did I forget to mention that Hina had eaten the cage fruit? Smoker glared at the woman, who her attention on Anne. As I was saying, this is about Smoker. This is when Hina was just a marine in training. And, Hina gave a wink. This is when Smoker was a rebel. 18 years ago, Hina would like some water. And make sure it's cold. Raoul raised an eyebrow at the 14-year-old girl who sat on the stool. She had her pink hair tied up in pigtails and she was wearing a white blouse with a blue skirt and a red box on her lap. Okay, sure thing, he said, reaching for the bottle of the shelves of his bar, and he poured the girl some water, making sure it was fresh and icy. He handed the mug to the girl, who gave him some berries and took a big swing of the drink. Say, shouldn't you be in school? Asked the bartender, cleaning up a glass. Hina placed down the empty mug. No, Hina is a marine in training. Hina is told to bring this parcel to Marine Admiral in this town by the execution tower. Hina is just taking a break, said the soon-to-be marine. Just then, the doors to the bar opened and a young man staggered in, taking a seat next to Hina. Just get me the usual, Raoul. It's been a long day, said the young man, giving a small pouch that gave the jingle-jangle of money. Sure think, champ. Rough day, asked Raoul, taking the pouch and starting up a mug of sake. Nah, just turned in some idiot bandit. That's half his bounty. And what did I say about calling me, champ? Asked the young man, his silver-gray eyes glinting. Hina took a quick look at the young man. He looked about 16 years old with a still-growing slim build. His hair was bristled and silver blonde. His eyes were gray and sharp, as if ready for anyone who tried to attack him. He wore a green jacket with a dark blue t-shirt, dark blue jeans and black heavy boots. Propped in his mouth was a thick cigar. The young man's eyes caught the girl's and he glared. What are you looking at? He growled, trying to scare the girl. Hina gave a frown. This man is rude. Hina stared because Hina wanted to. You should be nice to Hina. She is a marine in training, she said haughtily, puffing her cheeks angrily and childishly. The young man rolled his eyes and Raoul handed him his drink. Whatever. What do you want me to do? Bow and worship you with 1,000 praises? He asked sarcastically as he took a drink of his mug. Why yes, Hina expects that. The man nearly spat out his drink. He clamped his mouth over his mouth to stop his laughter and he cleared his throat. This girl was way too overconfident. He couldn't believe she was training to be a marine. Hina glared at the man. She did not like him. They had only said a few short sentences and Hina was already mad at him. She decided to leave. Hina is leaving. Thank you for the water, she said with a bow of her head as she hopped off her stool and left the bar, wanting to get away from the strange man. As she walked, she then noticed that her hands were empty. She had forgotten the parcel. Cursing to herself, she walked all the way back to the bar and saw that Raoul and the young man were still there. Oi, sir, have you seen the parcel Hina left? I forgot it, she said. Raoul pointed to the young man and Hina's eyes widened. The red box was opened and the young man was holding something in his hand. Said blonde turned and showed that he was eating a bumpy gray fruit with swirls around it. Oh, this was yours? He asked, holding up the last piece of the fruit before plunking it into his mouth. Hina stormed over to him and shook his shoulder like a mad woman. Do you get what you done? Hina had to take that to Marine Admiral. Now Hina will get in trouble. That's it. Hina has you under arrest, yelled the furious pink-haired girl as she grabbed the man by the ear and hauled him out of the bar. Ouch. Damn you, woman. Let me go. It was an accident, yelled the gray-eyed man as he tried to get out of the woman's grasp with no avail. Damn, this woman was strong. Hina ignored the man's protest and she dragged him all the way to the docks. A giant ship was waiting there and a man with a Marine Admiral jacket was draped over his shoulders. Hiding his face was the head of a dog. Ah, so you must be Hina. Nice to meet you. Who is your guest? Asked the Marine Admiral, pointing to the dragged young man. Hina lifted the man by his ear with a glare. This idiot ate what was in the parcel. She yelled. The young man grunted and he yanked himself out of the woman's hand, rubbing his ear. Sheesh, I didn't know. It was just lying there and I was hungry, muttered the young man angrily. The Marine looked at the two of them before chuckling. His chuckling turned into laughing and both miners looked at the man in confusion. Just what was so funny? BWA ha 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 ha. You two got spunk. I like that in Marines to be. Laughed the older man, wiping tears from his eyes. The young man scowled at the old man. First ain't a Marine to be, old geezer. I was dragged by this mad woman, remember? He snarled, receiving a glare from Hina. The older man laughed again. You might want to think that twice. We always need some devil fruit users on the Marines, chuckled the man. The younger man raised his eyebrow. Devil fruit user. I haven't eaten a devil fruit, he said. But you did. What kind of fruit did you think you ate? That parcel that Hina was delivering was the smoke fruit. It allows the consumer to turn into smoke and the user can use powerful, smoke-based attacks, said the old man. He then squinted at the new devil fruit user. And by the looks of it, your hair is soaking into your new powers as well. The young man cocked his head and he walked to the water, widening his eyes at his now white-gray hair. The hell? What happened to my hair? He yelled. The Marine Admiral laughed. That's your smoke powers for you, kid. He laughed. I bet his moves are weak. Hina thinks young man will not make it as a Marine, she said. Said young man spun around and shot daggers at her. Oh yeah, well I bet I can make it as a Marine. Old man, sign me up. Let me join the Marines. He snapped. There was no way he was going to let some woman say what he can and cannot do. His pride was just too hard to swallow. BWA ha ha ha. Like I said, you kids got spunk. Alright, what's your name, kiddo? Asked the old man. The younger man glared at the ground and clenched his jaw. I have no name. I gave up on my given one a long time ago, he muttered. The Marine Admiral gave a confused frown and he noticed that the young man's hair was now fully gray with a bit of white. He also saw the cigar clenched in the man's teeth. I'll call you Smoker. It suits you, he said. Smoker chewed on that for a while. Smoker huh. He suddenly gave a smirk. That didn't sound too bad at all. Present. And Smoker and I have known each other ever since, concluded Hina. She had just released the now pissed off Marine of her binding arms and the gray-haired man was glowering at her. Fantastic, Hina. Now, let's let Portgas get some rest and we'll walk outside where I'll send you to the godforsaken hell you came from. He snarled angrily. Hina huffed and Anne and Tashigi giggled. The two older women were the first to leave and Smoker turned to Anne. Stay here and rest. When you get well, leave or I'll throw you in my brig. I'm doing this one thing, Portgas, he muttered. Anne nodded and she lied down on the bed, closing her eyes. Smokey, she asked, peeking from the folds of Smoker's jacket. What? Asked the Marine, feeling a migraine coming to his head. Can I have my picture back? You know, the one I forgot. Asked the black-haired girl. Blinking, Smoker walked over to a chest and he dug through the messy papers until he found it. Here, he said, handing back the phototop Anne. The girl gave a tiny smile and she sighed at the picture, holding it to her chest and closing her eyes. After a long silence, Smoker asked a question. Portgas, who's the man in that picture? He asked. Anne kept her eyes closed but a frown came to her lips. It was sad and regretful. Smoker had never seen that type of face on the playful girl's features. His name is Thatch, he's my boyfriend. Smoker felt his heart stop for a few seconds, his insides went hollow and his mind was fuzzy. She had a boyfriend. She was in love. Why did that hurt him? Why was there a pain that stabbed his heart like a blade? What was this strange feeling? He's the 4th Division commander of Whitebeard's crew. He's nice and funny and good looking. He has a special place in my heart, whispered Anne, her eyes opening, shining with something. They looked like tears. Smoker was confused. It looked like she was going to cry. Well, where is he now? Back on your ship? Asked the smoke man. Anne turned her head to him, his eyes growing more shiny and a watery smile on her face. He's dead, Blackbeard killed him. No sign of hesitation either. He just killed him. And for what? The dark fruit that Thatch had found. He killed for power. He killed the man I loved. That's why I'm after him. He was under my command and I let him slip right through my fingers. Scum like him make me sick. I'll make sure I'll have the pleasure of beheading that bastard and using his head as a trophy, wavered Anne, her voice filled with tears and slight vengeance. She then threw her head to her pillow and wept silently. Smoker had no idea what to say. So that was why Anne was after Blackbeard. She wanted to make things right. She wanted to avenge her dead lover. Slowly, he walked over to the woman and he stroked her long locks of black. He saw this as a way of comfort. And Anne took it, for after a minute, her narcolepsy took over and she fell asleep. Watching her sleep for a moment. Sighing, Smoker walked out of his room silently, taking one last look at Anne. I know how you feel, Portgas. I understand you, though the Marine as he closed the door. Two pairs of childish black eyes stared at the still hand coming from the floor. With the flick of a wrist, the hand gave a wiggle and the two owners of the eyes laughed at its little dance. Robin smiled at the two, feeling satisfied that they liked her hand's movement. Chopper yelped at her smile and he hid behind Lucy, in the opposite direction. Hey, look at a person when they're questioning ya, snapped Usopp, gaining back the woman's attention. Robin looked back to him and she nodded, placing her hands in her lap and looking professional-like. She was being interrogated, after all. Alright, I want your name, devil fruit name and ability, occupation, and special skill, said the sniper. He then paused and cleared his throat. Oh, my name is Usopp. Hello, he added politely. Robin nodded in acknowledgement. Very well. As I said previously, my name is Nico Robin. When I was 8 years old, I defied the world government and I've been wanted ever since. As a child, I had gained my abilities from the flower fruit, a devil fruit that allows the consumer to grow multiple appendages at will. I study archaeology, which could be very useful to your crew. As for special skill, her eyes narrowed slightly with a soft smile. I kill. Usopp fell back in his chair with crocodile tears. Lucy, we can't let this woman join our crew. She's a killer, yelled the sharpshooter. Lucy was only half listening, since she and Chopper were being mercilessly tickled to death by many of Robin's hands. The sound of a foot meeting would made Robin and Usopp look to the lounge deck, seeing Name with one foot on a table with a scowl on her face. How idiotic. You expect us to allow you to join our crew just right after you were in league with Crocodile. You may have these others fooled, but not me. So hear this, she said as her eyes opened with a menacing glint. Get in the way, and I kick you out. Is that clear? She asked, her voice testing. Robin gave a calm look with the hint of a smile. Crystal. Oh, by the way, I recently remembered that I bought some of Crocodile's jewels with me, she said, pulling out a pouch with a chiming noise. It only took Nami 2 seconds to get down the steps and praise the woman like a queen. Usopp and Zoro were the only two sweat dropping. Man, looks like it's just you and me, Zoro, muttered Usopp. Hey Usopp. The sniper turned and he nearly busted a gut when he saw Lucy with two of Robin's hands curled at her head with a puppy dog look on her face. Chopper, she cooed. She, Chopper, and Usopp fell to their butts and laughed like mad. Zoro glared at the whole lot of them and he got up, grabbing his swords. Lucy noticed and she got up, grabbing the swordsman's wrist. What's wrong, Zoro? Where are you going? Sanji said that dinner was gonna be ready soon. He said he'll make the best since Robin. I don't care about Robin. Get out of my face, you stupid girl, yelled Zoro, his eyes filled with anger and his breathing heavy as he stormed out of the deck. Everyone watched him leave and they looked at Lucy, waiting for her reaction. The captain had her head down with a sad look on her face. She didn't look happy anymore. Tick-tock 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 tick. Smoker growled in annoyance and he glared at the clock on his wall. He had just finished the paperwork her had to do and now he was completely, utterly bored. He blew out some cigar smoke and he rubbed his temples, closing his eyes. His mind pixelated to Anne's face, her freckled face giving a flirtatious wink. The man opened his eyes again and he looked at the clock. It was close to 9 already and he was beginning to wonder if Anne was any better from her fever. Now that he thought about it, he saw that the pirate was leaving some sort of ache in his heart. The kind that just gave you the urge to take charge and seize it. With a sigh, the Marine got up and he left to his room. He had to go get his jacket after all, since Anne had still kept it. When he made it to his room, he saw that it was slightly ajar and that there was talking coming from it. He walked quietly to the door and he peered through the crack. And then Smoker dumped the Sea King just on the rear admiral and Hina had to go save his butt by explaining that Smoker was going to set up stink bombs for passing pirates. The end. Ha ha ha. Smokey sounds a hell lot cooler back then. Smoker's face flared. Did Hina really have a big enough mouth to go blab about his past? Especially to the woman he was after. He had never felt this embarrassed. To have his past laughed at by a pirate. It felt like a disgrace. Yes, Smoker was cooler back then. But he's still alright now. Roughed around the edges, yes, but he's okay on the inside. I know. Smoker is a good person once you get to know him. And I'm glad I do. That caught Smoker off guard. Did Anne really meant that? Most people feared him when they saw them. But Anne, she was glad that she met him. Indeed. Forgive Hina for asking this but I would like to know. Do you like Smoker? A lot. There was a pause of silence and the sound of shifting. I don't know. I feel as light as air when I'm around him, but I still can't get over my other boyfriend. Smoker nearly gasped. Was Anne saying that she liked him more than just teasing him? Was there something behind all those smug looks and taunts? Oh yes, Anne was talking about that earlier. You obviously miss him, don't you? Your heart cannot just leave him yet. Yeah, I mean, he was the first guy, the first ever, really liked. When I saw him dead, Smoker could hear the quivering of her lips. I thought that I couldn't let anyone else. But then, I met Smokey and there was another long silence and the sound of Anne shifting again. You know, I sort of knew something like this would happen. Median told me. Median, like a fortunate teller. Smoker could see and hear Anne cough in awkwardness. Yeah, it was a long time ago. Care to talk about it? Okay, it goes like this. 3 years ago. Oi, Captain, why'd we docked here? A 17-year-old ace turned to his crew, his big hat nearly falling off his head as the wind blew in city that they docked. Back then, before ever joining Whitebeard, he was the leader of the Spade Pirates. He was known as the Ace of Spades. Supplies. Go find some and we'll meet back here in an hour or so. I'm heading for a walk, called the young man as he and his crew separated. He was only walking for a few seconds when he felt a buzz go through his head. Shit, and I forgot my medicine, too, he cursed to himself. He looked around quickly before running into an alley and letting his body be consumed by flames. Anne appeared out of the fire and she buttoned up the yellow open shirt she had on, fixing her short hair that reached her shoulders and walking out of the alley casually. As she walked she stared up calmly in the sky with a smile. Today was just perfect. The sun was shining, spring was in the air. Nothing could go wrong. Oh, what a pretty young lady you are. Your appearance tells so much. Anne stopped short and she looked at the old fortunate teller that was in the pink tent. Her eyes were all alike and she wore a lot of gold. Anne looked around, then she pointed to herself. Yes, come here, child, let me tell you your future, said the older woman. Blinking and shrugging, Anne walked over. The woman softly took Anne's hand and she closed her eyes, tracing the hand lines of Anne's palm. Oh yes, I see many things. A childhood filled with mysteries and unexpected turns. A great tragedy made you take a great opportunity and you are now living the life you always wished, correct? Asked the old woman. Anne nodded with slight awe, even though she knew the woman couldn't see her nod. Yes, quite the good life. A life of freedom, friends, and adventure. But soon, the woman's eyebrows frowned. Another twist of fate will occur and you will discover the joy of companionship, brethren, and first love, said the woman in a trance-like voice. Anne raised an eyebrow. This was news to her. And wait, I see more. Your life will lead you to untold secrets and hidden mysteries. Questions will be answered and your life will change right before you know it. You will find yourself at a difficult choice, risking one life and your own, concluded the woman, opening her eyes. Anne subconsciously rubbed her palm. Wow, I just wanted to become the pirate queen, but if you say my life will be like that. Anne's stomach suddenly gave a growl and she blushed with a toothy grin. The old woman gave a chuckle. I see. Here, have this. The woman reached from the bag she had and she pulled out the strangest fruit. It was spiky looking with the mixtures of yellow, red, and orange, making the fruit look like a tiny flame burning out of the woman's hand. Slowly, Anne took the fruit and she looked at the woman. Trust me, it's very tasty. It will be the best fruit you ever tried, said the woman mysteriously. Anne nodded slowly and she turned to walk off. Oh yes, young lady, one more thing. Anne turned to the woman. What? She asked. Let your hair grow out. That is some womanly advice, said the old woman. Anne's hand went to her short wavy hair and she thought about it for a while, nodding and walking. As she walked she heard her stomach growl and she looked at the fruit in her hand. Raising it to her mouth, she took a big bite. It was spicy, with a sweet taste that made her jaw hurt. Shrugging, Anne continued to eat the rest of the fruit until she had ate it all. She supposed it was all right. Spicy, yes, but not that bad. Anne looked at the sky and she decided to get back to her crew. She had told them about her medicine so she knew they would understand when she came back looking like a girl. As she walked, she felt something grab her behind and she spun around to the lecherous-looking men. With a murderous glare, she raised her fist and charged at the man when she realized that plumes of fire raced out of her fist and shot at the men. They ran away with high-pitched screams. Anne blinked and she looked at her fist, looking at her fired fist. The fruit, she decided. It was the fruit's fault. She looked at her fist again and she suddenly smirked. Things had just started to get interesting. Present. So ya see, I kind of knew that stuff like this would happen. I just didn't knew that second loves were involved, too. Smoker's face had never been so red. So it was that Anne was in love with him. What was he to do now? Barge in there and throw her in the brig. Walk in, take her in his arms, and kiss her for all her worth. He pondered this when Hina spoke. Well, if you want Hina's advice, then I say you should hold on to that love. Then, when you are ready, tell him. There was another shift. Yeah, I think I will. There was another shift and the sound of boots standing on the floor with the cracks of stretching muscles. Well, I feel better now. I don't feel sick anymore. Looks like the doc was right. There were footsteps and the sound of a porthole being opened. Thanks for the talk, Hina. I'll be on my way. And Hina, yes, tell Smokey, thank you, for everything. Smoker wanted nothing more than to tell her thank you. For entering his life and showing him what she saw. Hina will do that. Hina will tell him. And with the sound of a whoosh, Smoker knew. She was gone, disappearing like the feeling wind of the sea. Or better yet, the last flicker of a flame. This food looks the best, Sanji. It looks so yummy. Why thank you, Lucy. My heart soars every time you complimented my food. Everyone of the Straw Hat crew surrounded the table of the lounge table that was full of delicious food. Everyone took a seat and Lucy had tipped a toast to Robin, welcoming her to her crew. Everyone agreed and they dug in. As they ate, Lucy noticed that one member of the pirate gang was not there. A man with forest green eyes and the most coolest color of green hair. Hey, where's Zoro? She asked. Everyone stopped from their eating. They were surprised. Lucy wasn't mad that Zoro had snapped at her earlier. Why did she acted as if nothing had happened? I think he's taking watch. He took a few bottles of sake so, I think it'll be a while before he comes down, said Nami. Lucy blinked as she stuffed a piece of bread in her mouth. After she swallowed it, she took Zoro's empty plate and she piled it with white rice and sea king meat. Lucy then stood up and began walking out of the room. I'm gonna take this to Zoro. He must be hungry, said Lucy, leaving her crew confused as she closed the door behind her. The black-haired girl walked over to the mast of the crow's nest and she climbed all the way up to the top. She heard hiccups and she looked over, seeing Zoro with a bottle in his hands and a bit of drool coming out of his lips. His pupils were dilated and his face was flushed red. Lucy noticed the piled bottles of empty sake. Had Zoro drank that much? She wasn't really worried. She knew that Zoro was great at facing alcohol. Hey, Zoro, I brought you some dinner, she said, stepping over and sitting on the opposite side of the samurai, holding out the plate of food. Zoro looked at the food, then at the girl before him. He was drunk, and he knew it. Maybe it wasn't a good idea to come up here with extra strong sake bottles. But he couldn't help it. He was pissed, and alcohol was the only stuff to clam his nerves. Thanks, he hiccuped, taking the plate and eating the food sloppily. Lucy watched in silence and she looked at her feet. Is Zoro still mad at me? She asked, wiggling her toes. Zoro stopped eating and he saw a sad look on her face. The same face she had when he snapped at her. With a sigh, he placed down his plate and he grabbed Lucy, pulling her onto his lap. Lucy made a yelp as she was pressed against Zoro's chest in an awkward hug. She blushed and she held her hands to her chest, waiting for her first mate to say something. No, I ain't mad at ya anymore. I was just pissed. That you just let that woman join us without a hesitation, slurred the green-haired man, trying to say his words right. Lucy looked up and gave a tiny smile. I'm glad. I like it when Zoro is anything but mad. I like you very much, she said, her eyes sparkling. Zoro looked down at her and he was mesmerized instantly. The full moon gave her eyes and hair an beautiful shine and her lips were so soft when they were curved in her sweet smile. Her warm body pressed against his was just amazing and they were so close. He didn't know if it was his own will or the sake getting to him but something made him duck his head. Lucy barely managed a squeak as Zoro pressed his lips to hers. They sat there in silence, their lips just resting against the other. Lucy's heart was racing and she was completely frozen. Why was Zoro kissing her? It didn't feel weird but it was a little odd. The weirdness only lasted a bit when she felt Zoro's lips move passionately against hers, coaxing her to kiss him back. With a mule, Lucy closed her eyes and rested her hands on Zoro's shoulders, her lips trying to follow her first mate's lips movement. Zoro nearly growled in pleasure as he felt Lucy's sweet and full lips move her against his. She was so new and shy at this. It was completely adorable. His muscular arms wrapped around her waist and pulled her closer to him. He swiveled his head a bit, making Lucy's hat fall off her head. Lucy hardly noticed and her hands went to the back of the man's neck, her fingers lightly playing with the hairs that resided there. Zoro almost did groan and he suddenly felt a sleeping feeling come to his mind. No, not now. He was experiencing the best moment of his life now. He didn't want a load of booze to knock him out on it. But it was no use. Blackness surrounded his mind and he fell forward, sleeping and snoring on Lucy's lap. Lucy panted and her face flushed with red. She was so happy yet confused. Why had Zoro suddenly done that? She looked at the sake bottles and she sighed, guessing that it was just the alcohol making him do that. His fingers lightly ran through his short hair and she gave a small smile. Even though it was sake that made him kiss her, Lucy really did like that kiss. It was so good, so right. It was perfect. She sighed and she moved Zoro's head from her lap, standing up and swinging her feet over the crow's nest. She looked back and smiled at Zoro one last time before climbing down. He had said that he was not mad at her and he had kissed her. He would most likely not remember it due to a hangover but with that kiss, Lucy was okay with whatever would happen next.